It was a crisp morning in late spring when Elon Musk, the renowned tech mogul and founder of Tesla and SpaceX, stood in front of a crowd of some of the brightest minds in the world. The room was packed with engineers, scientists, and thought leaders, all eagerly awaiting his announcement. There was a palpable tension in the air. Everyone knew this moment would change the future of artificial intelligence. Musk had been working on a groundbreaking AI project, one that could revolutionize the way machines interact with humans. The stakes were high, and Musk was ready to unveil his vision. But as he prepared to speak, something unexpected happened. A small voice broke through the sea of expectations. "Excuse me, Mr. Musk." Musk's eyes flickered toward the source of the interruption. Standing at the back of the room, a little girl raised her hand. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. Her blonde hair was tied in a ponytail, and she wore a simple blue dress that contrasted with the expensive suits of the adults around her. There was something about her presence that was so unexpected. She looked out of place, yet confident, as if she belonged in the room just as much as the billionaires and scientists. A few murmurs rippled through the crowd. Who was this child? And why was she speaking up at such a crucial moment? Musk, who had seen many surprises in his career, raised an eyebrow and nodded for her to continue. "What's on your mind?" The girl stepped forward, her small voice carrying across the room. "Mr. Musk, I've been thinking about AI for a long time," she said, her words clear and purposeful. "You've said that AI will be the most powerful tool we ever create, but I wonder. What if we've got it all wrong?" A few people exchanged glances, intrigued but unsure. Musk stood silent for a moment, caught off guard by the question. The child's inquiry was simple, yet profound. It wasn't a technical question about algorithms or neural networks. It was philosophical. And Musk knew this was exactly the kind of question that could lead to a paradigm shift in how the world approached AI. The girl continued, her eyes bright with curiosity. "What if, instead of seeing AI as something we need to control, we thought about it as something that could learn from us, something that could grow alongside humanity, rather than replace it? Couldn't it be a tool that helps us in ways we haven't even imagined?" There was a pause in the room, a silence that seemed to stretch for an eternity. The audience was stunned, unsure of how to react to such a bold, fresh perspective. Musk, however, was captivated. He had built his empire on challenging conventional wisdom, on questioning the status quo. He hadn't expected to hear something so profound from a 10-year-old girl. The crowd waited with bated breath, wondering how Musk would respond to this unexpected interruption. Musk took a deep breath and, with a slight smile, addressed the room. "You know," he said, his voice calm but tinged with curiosity, "you might be onto something. I'm used to hearing complex theories and arguments about AI, but this is different. You've raised a question that none of us in this room have even considered. What if we've been looking at AI all wrong?" The girl smiled, a shy but knowing expression on her face. "I don't know," she said. "But maybe the key to the future isn't just in making AI smarter. Maybe it's about making it understand us." Musk nodded thoughtfully, clearly impressed. "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied simply. "Emma," Musk repeated, as though trying to memorize it. "That's an interesting question you've posed. I'll be honest, there's a lot to think about. Maybe we can talk more after this meeting." Emma nodded, clearly pleased with the opportunity. She turned and walked back to her seat, her presence now felt throughout the room. The conversation had shifted, and for the first time in a long while, the experts in the room were no longer the ones leading the discussion. After the session, as Musk made his way to his office, he couldn't shake the thought of Emma's question. Could AI really be more than just a tool to be controlled? Could it actually learn from humanity and evolve in a way that was symbiotic rather than adversarial? Musk had always been cautious about AI, even as he pushed its boundaries with Tesla's autonomous cars and SpaceX's AI-driven space exploration technologies. But what if Emma was right? What if the future of AI wasn't about control, but about partnership? Musk had always been fascinated by the unknown, the unexplored territory where humanity's potential met technology's possibilities. He had built his career on asking difficult questions and tackling impossible challenges. And now, here was a child, no older than his own kids, posing a question that could change everything. But Emma wasn't just any child. She had an uncanny ability to articulate complex ideas with a simplicity that made them easy to understand. Musk knew he had to meet her again, to delve deeper into the implications of her vision. If she could think of something that others hadn't, there was a chance she had stumbled upon something that could change the world. As he sat down at his desk, Musk tapped out a quick message to his assistant. "Set up a meeting with Emma. I want to learn more about her thoughts on AI. This could be the beginning of something big." Back at home, Emma sat at the dinner table with her mother, who had been watching the entire event from the comfort of their living room. Emma's mom, Dr. Laura Green, was a scientist herself, specializing in cognitive neuroscience. She had always been Emma's biggest supporter, encouraging her daughter's passion for learning and innovation. But even Laura had to admit that she was amazed by Emma's bravery in speaking up at such an important event. "You did it, didn't you?" Laura said with a grin. "You got his attention." Emma nodded shyly. "I think he was surprised," she said, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "But maybe I'm onto something, Mom. Maybe AI doesn't have to be something we're afraid of. Maybe it can be something that helps us." Laura smiled, her pride evident. "I think you're right, honey. But don't forget, it's not just about having the right idea, it's about proving it to the world." Emma looked out the window, her thoughts racing. This was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long and filled with obstacles, but for the first time, she felt like she had a chance to change the world. Back at the conference, the discussion continued, but no one could shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. Emma's words had planted a seed in everyone's mind. And as the event wrapped up, Musk found himself staring out the window of his office, thinking about the young girl who had posed a question that could alter the future of AI. "Maybe she's right," Musk muttered to himself. "Maybe the future of AI isn't just about control. Maybe it's about understanding." With that thought lingering in his mind, Musk knew that Emma had just changed the game. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Emma sat in her room, staring at the small screen of her laptop, lost in the world of algorithms and neural networks. It was a world that had fascinated her for as long as she could remember. While most children her age were out playing with friends or watching cartoons, Emma was reading research papers, experimenting with code, and building her own AI models. Her obsession with artificial intelligence wasn't a passing phase, it was a calling. Her mother, Dr. Laura Green, watched her daughter from the doorway, a gentle smile on her face. Laura, a cognitive neuroscientist, had always known Emma was special. From the moment Emma could speak, she was asking questions about how the human brain worked, how machines could think, and what it would take to make a robot understand human emotions. Laura had encouraged her curiosity, providing her with books and resources to help foster her growing fascination with the world of science and technology. But even Laura, a highly accomplished scientist herself, had to admit that Emma's capabilities were beyond anything she had ever imagined. At just 10 years old, Emma was writing complex code, creating simulations, and even developing AI algorithms that rivaled those of experienced professionals. "Emma," Laura called softly, stepping into her daughter's room. "You've been at this for hours. How about a break?" Emma glanced up from her screen, a look of concentration on her face. "Just a few more minutes, Mom. I'm working on something big. I think I might have found a way to make AI learn more like humans do." Laura raised an eyebrow. "Like humans do? You know that's no small task, right?" Emma nodded. "I know, but I think it's possible. If we can get AI to process emotions the way the brain does, it could become a partner, not just a tool. A real collaborator." Laura leaned against the doorframe, crossing her arms. That's ambitious. But you're right. If AI could learn empathy, understanding, and context, well, that would change everything. You've been researching this for a while now, haven't you? Emma's eyes lit up. Yes. I've been reading about neural networks and emotional AI. There are a few studies that have tried to incorporate emotion into algorithms, but none of them have really worked. I think I can figure it out, Mom. I just need more time. Laura's heart swelled with pride as she watched her daughter speak with such confidence and clarity. Emma wasn't just smart, she had a rare insight into the world of AI that could potentially transform the field forever. But Laura also knew that her daughter needed guidance. Developing this kind of technology at such a young age was no small feat, and the risks involved were enormous. You know, Emma, Laura began, her tone serious but encouraging, AI is powerful. It can do amazing things, but it also carries great responsibility. You need to be careful. We have to make sure that whatever we create doesn't hurt people or cause harm. Emma nodded, fully aware of the weight of her work. I know, Mom. I've been thinking about that. But what if we could create AI that helps people instead? What if we could create something that makes the world better? Laura walked over and placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. That's exactly why I want you to be cautious. The world needs innovators, but it also needs people who understand the consequences of their creations. If you can strike that balance, Emma, you could change the world. Emma smiled at her mother's words, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just building machines, she was shaping the future. The next day, Emma sat at the kitchen table, a bowl of cereal in front of her, her mind elsewhere. Her mother was busy in her office, preparing for an upcoming conference. Emma's thoughts drifted back to the conference she had attended with Elon Musk. The memory of speaking up in front of such a distinguished crowd still felt surreal. She hadn't expected her question to have such an impact, but it was clear that her words had resonated with someone important, someone who could help her make her vision a reality. Elon Musk. The name echoed in her mind. She had been a little nervous when she asked him that question, but now, looking back, she realized how important that moment was. Musk was a visionary, a man who had built his fortune on thinking differently, on tackling the world's biggest problems. If he saw potential in her idea, maybe the world would too. She wondered if he had thought more about her question since the conference. Was he still intrigued? Could he see the same potential in her ideas that she did? Her thoughts were interrupted when her phone buzzed. Emma picked it up, seeing a message from her mother. Call me when you get a chance, honey. I have something exciting to tell you. Emma's heart skipped a beat. What could it be? Maybe her mom had heard back from someone about her research. Or perhaps she had some new insights to share. Either way, Emma couldn't wait to hear what her mom had to say. She grabbed her phone and dialed her mom's number. It rang twice before Laura picked up. Hi, sweetie, her mom's voice came through the phone. I have some exciting news for you. Emma's curiosity piqued. What is it, Mom? Did something happen with my research? Well, Laura began, her voice filled with excitement, I just got off the phone with someone you might know. Elon Musk's team wants to meet with you. They were really impressed by your question at the conference, and they want to discuss your ideas further. Emma's jaw dropped. Wait. What? Elon Musk wants to meet with me? Yes, Laura replied, her voice filled with pride. It looks like your question got their attention. They want to talk about the possibility of you working with them on your AI project. Emma felt her heart race. This was the moment she had been dreaming of. All her hard work, all the late nights spent coding and experimenting, had led to this. She was about to get a chance to work with some of the brightest minds in the world, to bring her ideas to life. Mom, this is incredible. I can't believe it. What do I do now? I think you should prepare yourself, Laura advised. This is a big opportunity, and you need to make sure you're ready. Think about what you want to say and how you can best present your ideas. They're not just looking for someone with a good idea, they're looking for someone who can make it happen. Emma's mind was racing with excitement, but she knew her mother was right. This was just the beginning, and she had to be prepared for the challenges ahead. But for now, all she could do was smile and let the excitement wash over her. Elon Musk wants to meet with me, Emma whispered to herself, feeling like everything she had worked for was finally coming to fruition. And with that, Emma knew that this was just the start of something much bigger than she could have ever imagined. The following days were a blur of excitement and preparation. Emma found herself spending every free moment refining her ideas, reviewing her research, and gathering her thoughts. The opportunity to meet with Elon Musk wasn't just a dream come true, it was the chance of a lifetime. Her mind raced with questions. What would he ask? Would he believe in her vision? How could she convey the depth of her understanding about AI and its potential to change the world? As the meeting approached, Emma's mother, Laura, helped her stay focused. She wasn't just a scientist, she was a mentor, guiding Emma through the challenges of presenting such a groundbreaking idea to one of the world's most powerful figures in technology. Laura emphasized the importance of being clear, confident, and prepared. "You've got this, Emma," Laura said one evening as they reviewed her presentation. "You know your stuff better than anyone. Just remember, this isn't about impressing Elon Musk, it's about showing him your vision and how it can reshape the future." Emma nodded, though the excitement in her chest made it hard to concentrate. She had been reading papers, watching lectures, and coding late into the night. She felt ready, but also nervous. Meeting Musk was one thing, but presenting her ideas to someone who had already revolutionized so many industries was an entirely different challenge. Finally, the big day arrived. Laura drove Emma to the meeting, her heart full of pride as she watched her daughter, poised and determined, prepare for the opportunity that could shape the rest of her life. As they pulled into the sleek parking lot of SpaceX's headquarters, Emma could hardly contain her excitement. The building itself was a testament to Musk's vision, a futuristic structure that seemed to blend technology with art, symbolizing the cutting edge of human innovation. Emma took a deep breath as they approached the entrance, and for the first time, the gravity of the situation fully hit her. This was real. This was happening. They were greeted by Musk's team, who led them into a conference room filled with high-tech displays and futuristic designs. It was clear that this was a place where big ideas were born. Emma tried to stay calm as she walked in, taking in the space around her. Soon, the door opened, and there he was, Elon Musk. He entered the room with his usual air of confidence, his gaze sharp and inquisitive. He smiled when he saw Emma, a smile that conveyed both respect and genuine interest. "Emma," Musk said, his voice calm yet full of curiosity. "It's good to finally meet you in person. I've been thinking a lot about what you said at the conference. I have to admit, I was impressed by the way you see AI. Not many people your age are asking the kind of questions you're asking." Emma smiled nervously, but she held his gaze, her mind focused on the task ahead. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. I've been thinking a lot about how we can make AI work with humanity, rather than just for humanity. We need AI to learn not only from data, but also from our emotions, our context, our decisions. That's how it can truly become a partner, rather than a tool." Musk nodded thoughtfully, his expression shifting from polite curiosity to something more intense. "I've been saying for years that AI is the next frontier. But your perspective, making AI learn from us the way we learn from each other, could be a game changer. Can you explain a little more about how you think this would work?" Emma took a deep breath, her confidence growing as she realized Musk wasn't just humoring her, he was genuinely interested. She opened her laptop, connecting it to the projector at the front of the room, and began walking him through her ideas. She explained her theory that AI, instead of being an isolated entity driven by cold logic, could integrate human emotions and decision-making processes into its learning model. She showed how AI could be trained not just on raw data, but on complex human interactions, how it could learn empathy, adapt to human moods, and understand the nuances of context. AI needs to learn the way humans do, Emma said, her voice growing more assured. We don't learn everything through structured input, we learn by observing, by experiencing, by empathizing with others. What if AI could do the same thing? What if it could become something that listens, understands, and adapts to our needs and emotions? Musk leaned forward, clearly intrigued. And how would you go about making this happen? What steps do you think we'd need to take to get AI to understand emotional intelligence? Emma paused for a moment, considering her next words carefully. Well, first, we need to teach AI to recognize emotions. Not just in text or images, but in the context of human behavior, body language, tone of voice, even facial expressions. Once we have that, we can start to train it to understand the emotional context behind decisions. For example, if someone makes a choice based on fear or love, AI could learn to recognize that and factor it into its decision-making process. She could see Musk's wheels turning, his mind working through the possibilities. That's fascinating, he said. It's uncharted territory. But I can see the potential. You're talking about creating an AI that's not just a tool, but a collaborator, a partner. And it could have an impact on everything, from healthcare to education to customer service. Emma nodded eagerly. Exactly. And it's not just about making AI more human-like. It's about creating a system that can support us in ways we've never imagined. Imagine an AI that could help someone with anxiety, or help children with autism better understand social cues. The possibilities are endless. Musk smiled, clearly impressed. I have to say, Emma, this is one of the most thought-provoking conversations I've had in a long time. I think you've tapped into something important, something that could change the trajectory of AI development. He leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. I want to help you make this happen, Emma. This could be the future of AI, and I'd like to see where you can take it. Let's work together on this. What do you need from us? Emma's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the opportunity she had been waiting for. She was in the room with one of the greatest minds of her generation, and he was offering to help her bring her vision to life. I just need the resources, the time, and the right team, Emma said, her voice steady. I can't do this alone. Musk nodded, his eyes filled with determination. Consider it done. We'll make sure you have everything you need. As the meeting ended, Emma felt a sense of disbelief wash over her. This wasn't just a dream, it was happening. She had done it. And with Elon Musk's support, her vision for a new kind of AI, one that could understand and learn from humanity, was one step closer to becoming a reality. But this was only the beginning. There was so much more to do, so many obstacles to overcome. Emma knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in her life, she was certain of one thing: she was on the path to change the world. After the meeting with Elon Musk, Emma felt like she was standing at the edge of something monumental. As she walked out of the SpaceX building with her mother by her side, her mind raced with possibilities. This was no longer a dream. It was real. She was about to embark on a journey that could change the world, and she couldn't have felt more alive. As they made their way back to their car, Laura looked over at her daughter, her eyes filled with pride and concern in equal measure. You did great today, Emma. I could see it in his eyes, he's invested in your idea. This is huge. Emma smiled, her hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline. I can't believe it, Mom. I've been dreaming about this for so long, but now that it's actually happening, it feels surreal. Laura put a hand on Emma's shoulder. I know it's a lot to take in, but you've earned this. You've worked harder than anyone I know, and now you have the chance to make your vision a reality. But remember, this is just the beginning. The road ahead is going to be tough. There will be setbacks, challenges, and moments when you might feel like giving up. But you can't. I won't, Emma said, her voice firm with conviction. This is too important. I'm going to make it work. Back at home, Emma wasted no time getting to work. The next few weeks were a blur of coding, brainstorming, and refining her ideas. With the resources provided by Elon Musk's team, Emma was given access to advanced AI tools and data sets that she had only dreamed of using before. She set up a workspace in the corner of her room, filled with monitors displaying lines of code, blueprints, and research papers. The pressure was immense. Every day, Emma had to push her limits further, digging into the deepest corners of machine learning and emotional AI, constantly experimenting, iterating, and testing. But with each passing day, she felt herself growing more confident in her abilities. Laura, ever the supportive mentor, kept Emma grounded. She reminded her of the importance of balance and taking breaks, even when Emma felt like she couldn't stop for a second. You're brilliant, Emma, but you also need to recharge. Your mind needs rest to think clearly. Emma nodded, though she hated stepping away from her work. Still, she trusted her mother's advice. And when she wasn't coding or reading research, Emma spent time with her friends, though it was becoming more difficult to balance her social life with her AI project. But soon, the hard work started paying off. Emma had made significant progress in creating a prototype of her emotional AI model, a neural network that could recognize and respond to emotional cues. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was a start. It could identify basic emotions like happiness, sadness, and fear from text, and it was beginning to understand the subtle nuances of human interaction. One evening, as Emma worked late into the night, she received an email notification. She opened it, seeing that it was from the head of Musk's AI research division. Subject: Check-in meeting, your AI progress. Her heart raced as she clicked open the email. Hi Emma, we are excited to see the progress you've made on your emotional AI project. We believe you're on the right track, and we'd love to schedule a check-in meeting to see how things are going. Let us know your availability this week. Emma couldn't believe it. This was the moment she'd been waiting for, the first official review of her work by the team at SpaceX. They were interested. They believed in her vision. It was time to show them what she could do. The meeting was scheduled for the following Friday. Emma spent the next few days refining her model, ensuring that it was as close to perfect as possible. The pressure was building, but she didn't let it overwhelm her. She worked tirelessly, sometimes skipping meals and sleeping less than usual, but she couldn't stop. This was her moment. When the day of the meeting arrived, Emma stood in front of her computer screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. She checked her presentation once more, making sure everything was in order. Her mother stood beside her, offering a reassuring smile. You've got this, Laura said, squeezing her shoulder. Just remember, they're not just looking for perfection. They want to see your vision. Show them why this is important. Emma nodded, trying to calm the fluttering in her chest. She pressed the Join Meeting button and waited as the screen loaded. Soon, the faces of the SpaceX AI team appeared on the screen, and at the center of them all was Elon Musk himself. He gave Emma a warm smile as she waved. Hi, Emma. It's great to see you again. How are you doing? I'm doing great, thank you, Emma replied, her voice steady despite the nerves swirling inside her. I've made a lot of progress since we last spoke, and I'm excited to share it with you. Musk nodded. We're all excited to see where you're at. Let's take a look. Emma began sharing her screen, walking them through her emotional AI model. She showed them how it could analyze and respond to emotional inputs, using both text and visual cues. She demonstrated how it could identify underlying emotions in a conversation and adjust its responses accordingly. The team was silent as they watched her presentation. Emma could feel the weight of their scrutiny, but she pressed on, explaining the potential applications of her work, how it could be used in healthcare, education, and customer service. She made sure to emphasize the importance of ethical considerations and the safeguards she had put in place to ensure that the AI didn't cause harm. When she finished, the room was still. Emma held her breath, unsure of what they would say. Finally, Musk spoke. "Emma, I'm impressed. This is the kind of thinking that AI needs. You've shown us something that goes beyond traditional machine learning, something that could truly change the way we interact with technology. But there's still a lot of work to do." Emma's heart sank for a moment. "What do you mean? Is it not good enough?" "No, no," Musk said quickly. "It's good. Very good. But we need to keep pushing the boundaries. We need to make it smarter, more intuitive. The next step is to train it to react in real time, to understand the emotional context of not just conversations, but situations. And we need to be sure that it's safe for people to trust." Emma nodded. "I understand. I'm ready for that." Musk smiled. "Good. We're going to support you in every way we can. Let's keep working together to make this happen. I believe you're onto something big." The meeting ended, and Emma felt a rush of relief. She had done it. But now, the real work was just beginning. As Emma sat back in her chair, a sense of determination settled over her. She had earned the trust of the most influential minds in AI, and they were ready to help her change the world. But with that trust came a heavy responsibility, a responsibility to make sure that her AI model wasn't just groundbreaking, but also ethical, safe, and beneficial to humanity. The road ahead would be long, but Emma was ready. With the support of Musk's team and her own unwavering drive, she knew that nothing was impossible. She was no longer just a 10-year-old prodigy, she was the future of AI. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. Emma and Musk's AI team worked tirelessly, collaborating on the next phase of her project. The team at SpaceX provided her with even more advanced resources, access to faster computers, more data sets, and additional experts in AI and neuroscience. Emma's mother, Laura, remained her constant support, providing guidance, encouragement, and a steady hand whenever the stress became too much. But despite the progress, Emma couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. Her emotional AI model was still making progress, but it was far from perfect. It could identify basic emotions like joy, sadness, or frustration, but when it came to more complex emotional responses, like guilt, shame, or compassion, the model often faltered. The AI seemed to struggle with the subtleties of human emotion, something Emma had anticipated but hadn't fully understood until she began testing it. Her frustrations were compounded when she discovered another major flaw. The model, while able to detect emotions based on input data, didn't always respond appropriately. Sometimes it would misinterpret a person's feelings, offering the wrong emotional response in return. A user's sadness might trigger a robotic response that was more fitting for someone who was angry, and a cheerful message could be met with an unnervingly somber reaction. Emma worked late into the night, trying to fix the model's misinterpretations. She wrote lines of new code, tested and retested, but the problems persisted. She was running into a wall. Every solution she tried seemed to only uncover more issues, and for the first time since starting this project, Emma felt completely overwhelmed. It didn't help that she was still balancing the pressure from her studies. Schoolwork had piled up as the project advanced, and Emma was beginning to feel the strain. Her friends, once a source of comfort and distraction, were noticing her absence, and she hadn't seen them in weeks. She hadn't been able to return their calls or messages, and as much as she wanted to be there for them, Emma couldn't afford to waste time. Every hour was crucial. One evening, after yet another long coding session, Emma stepped outside for a breather. The cool evening air felt refreshing against her skin, but it couldn't calm the storm brewing in her mind. She leaned against the railing of her porch, staring up at the star-filled sky, feeling a sense of isolation creeping in. This project, which had once seemed so exciting and full of promise, was now a mountain she wasn't sure she could climb. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. She looked down and saw a message from Laura, who had just left to visit some colleagues for a few days. "Hey sweetheart, I know you're working hard. But remember, you're not alone. We've got this. Call me if you need anything." I believe in you. Love, Mom. Tears stung Emma's eyes as she read the message. Her mother's words reminded her of why she had started this journey, to push the boundaries of what was possible and, ultimately, to help people. But right now, all Emma could feel was exhaustion and frustration. She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a few deep breaths to center herself. You can do this, she whispered under her breath. You just need to keep going. The next morning, Emma faced her first true test. The SpaceX team scheduled a follow-up meeting to check on the progress of her AI. Emma knew it wasn't going to be easy. Her presentation wasn't polished, far from it. She had so many issues to solve, and the model's failure to respond accurately to emotional cues weighed heavily on her mind. Still, she knew she couldn't back out. If she did, everything she had worked for could slip through her fingers. As she joined the meeting that afternoon, she felt her stomach churn. The screen loaded, and there they were, Elon Musk, the team of AI experts, and a few other key members from SpaceX. Musk greeted her warmly, but there was an underlying seriousness in his voice. Emma, great to see you again. We're really excited to hear how things are going. How has the model progressed? Emma took a deep breath and, with a shaky voice, began to speak. Well, I've made a lot of progress, but there are some issues that I need help addressing. The model is able to detect basic emotions, but when it comes to more complex ones, it's been struggling. The responses it gives don't always match the emotions being expressed. I've tried several different algorithms and data sets, but nothing seems to work perfectly. There was a brief pause, and Emma felt her heart sink. She had expected disappointment, but she also hoped that they would understand that she wasn't giving up. She was just stuck. Musk, ever the pragmatist, nodded thoughtfully. I see. That's understandable. AI models like this are difficult to train, especially when we're trying to capture something as intricate as human emotion. But this is an important part of the process. You're learning, and learning often involves setbacks. We've all been there. Emma felt a small weight lift off her shoulders as Musk spoke. But the pressure was still there. She had to find a way to fix it. Emma, I think the issue here isn't just about coding. It's about data, said one of the AI specialists from the team. You need more diverse, real-world data to train your model. If you're working with emotional cues, you need more examples, situations, conversations, interactions where emotions play a more significant role. Have you thought about collaborating with psychologists or even using data from real human interactions? Emma's eyes lit up at the suggestion. That's a great idea. I've been focusing mainly on the technical side of things, but I haven't really explored real-life emotional data. I could use data from interviews, therapy sessions, or even movies and books where emotions are portrayed more deeply. Musk leaned forward, his expression sharp but encouraging. Exactly. And don't be afraid to use unconventional sources. Art, literature, music, they all capture emotional depth in ways that typical data sets can't. This will give your AI the emotional intelligence it needs. The meeting continued, and Emma's mind raced with new possibilities. After the meeting ended, she spent hours searching for emotional data sources. She reached out to psychologists, emotional intelligence experts, and even contacted some filmmakers who might be able to help her curate the perfect data sets. She knew this was the breakthrough she needed. She could feel it in her gut. But there was still a part of her that was terrified. What if this new approach didn't work either? What if she was simply too young to solve such a complex problem? But she couldn't afford to think like that. She had Elon Musk and an entire team of brilliant minds supporting her. This setback wasn't the end, it was just a challenge to overcome. And Emma was determined to push forward, no matter how hard it got. By the end of the week, Emma had already made significant strides. She had connected with a group of psychologists willing to collaborate, and she was working on incorporating emotional data from various sources. She had renewed energy, feeling the spark of creativity she had been missing. There was still a long way to go, but Emma now knew something crucial: setbacks weren't failures. They were just part of the journey. And with that lesson in mind, she was ready to keep moving forward, toward the future she knew she could help shape. The weeks following the setback were some of the most challenging Emma had ever faced. But as she dove into the new data sources, consulting with psychologists, and working closely with the AI team at SpaceX, she began to see signs of progress. Slowly, her emotional AI model started to improve. It was no longer making wild, inaccurate predictions about emotions, and its responses were becoming more contextually appropriate. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was getting closer. Emma could feel it. She spent countless hours combing through film scripts, books, and even dialogue from therapy sessions that captured the nuances of human emotion. She worked tirelessly to integrate these diverse datasets into her AI's neural network, training it to recognize not just the basic emotions, but also the more subtle ones like guilt, empathy, and even sarcasm. But it wasn't just the technical side of things that was keeping Emma awake at night. As her progress accelerated, so did the pressure. She knew that the AI team was eagerly awaiting her next major update. They were waiting to see if she could truly create something groundbreaking, something that would change the way people interacted with machines forever. One evening, after another long day of coding and testing, Emma collapsed into her chair, exhausted. She rubbed her eyes and glanced at the clock, 3 a.m. She hadn't meant to work this late, but it had become so easy to lose track of time when she was immersed in her work. As she gazed at her screen, she noticed something odd. The AI's latest response to an emotional prompt was different. It wasn't perfect, but it was a significant improvement. The model had accurately identified the emotion behind a sarcastic statement, and its response was fitting for the situation. Emma sat up straight. Could it be? Was this the breakthrough she had been waiting for? She decided to test it further. She fed the AI with a series of increasingly complex emotional prompts, conversations with layered emotions, situations where one person was hiding their true feelings behind a facade. Each time, the AI responded appropriately, interpreting emotions with surprising accuracy. Emma's heart began to race as she realized the potential of what she had just achieved. This wasn't just an improvement, it was a leap forward. Her model had learned to detect emotions in a way she hadn't thought possible. The complexity and depth of human emotional expression were no longer beyond its grasp. She quickly took screenshots of the results and drafted a brief report, eager to share her discovery with the SpaceX team. But before she could send it, she paused. This was big. This could change everything. She had to get it right. After reviewing her findings one last time, Emma composed an email to Elon Musk, the AI team, and a few key experts who had been assisting her. It was time for another update meeting. The next day, Emma's email was met with enthusiastic replies. A meeting was scheduled for later in the week, and she spent the following days perfecting her presentation. This time, she felt more prepared than ever. The AI had progressed in ways she hadn't anticipated, and she was excited to show them how far she had come. When the day of the meeting arrived, Emma's nerves were at an all-time high. She had rehearsed her presentation over and over again, making sure everything was clear and concise. She knew this was the moment that could change everything for her, and for the world. As the video call began, she saw the familiar faces of the SpaceX team appear on her screen. Elon Musk's face filled the center of the display, his expression unreadable as always, but there was a subtle spark of interest in his eyes. "Good to see you, Emma. How's the project going?" Musk asked. Emma took a deep breath. "I think I've made a breakthrough." The room went silent. Everyone leaned in, waiting for her to explain. Emma shared her screen and began walking through her results. She demonstrated how the AI had not only improved in recognizing basic emotions, but had also developed a much deeper understanding of complex emotional states. It could now interpret sarcastic remarks, detect hidden feelings, and even respond with empathy when needed. The responses were still far from perfect, but they were a significant leap forward from where she had started. The team watched in silence as Emma walked them through her findings. As she finished, she waited for their reaction. Her heart raced as she wondered what they would say. Elon Musk was the first to speak. "This is impressive, Emma. You've really pushed the boundaries here. We've been working on AI for years, and I haven't seen anyone, especially someone so young, make such significant progress. This is the kind of thinking that could change everything." Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her, but she didn't let herself get complacent. "Thank you, Mr. Musk. But I know there's still a lot of work to do. It's not perfect yet." "Of course," Musk replied, nodding. "Nothing worth doing is ever perfect on the first try. But you've done something extraordinary here. You've opened up a whole new world of possibilities. We can now start thinking about how to deploy this technology safely and ethically." One of the AI experts on the team, a woman named Dr. Anna Westbrook, spoke up. "I agree with Elon. This is groundbreaking. But as we move forward, we'll need to refine the model further. We'll need to test it in real-world situations and continue to adjust it based on user feedback. It's going to be a journey, but we're all here to help you." Emma nodded eagerly. "I'm ready. I've learned so much from this process already, and I know there's still more to learn. I'll keep working to make this even better." The meeting went on for another hour, with the team discussing next steps. They talked about the potential applications of Emma's emotional AI model, from customer service and education to healthcare and therapy. The possibilities were endless, and Emma could hardly believe she was at the center of it all. As the meeting wrapped up, Elon Musk turned to her one last time. "Emma, I want you to know that we're committed to supporting you. This project could change the future of AI, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure it's a success. Keep pushing the limits." Emma's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. She had done it. She had overcome the setbacks, the doubts, and the challenges. And now, she was on the cusp of something truly extraordinary. As the meeting ended and Emma sat back in her chair, she couldn't help but feel a sense of disbelief. She had come so far, from a young girl with an idea to a trailblazer in the world of AI. But despite the progress, she knew that the road ahead was still long. There would be more challenges, more obstacles to overcome. But with the support of the SpaceX team and her own unwavering determination, Emma was ready for whatever came next. The journey had only just begun. As Emma continued to make progress on her AI project, the excitement of her breakthroughs began to give way to a more pressing concern: ethics. The deeper she dug into the possibilities of her emotional AI model, the more she realized that her work, while groundbreaking, could have profound implications for society. She had created a model that could interpret and respond to human emotions, but with that power came responsibility. Late one evening, as she sat in front of her computer, Emma found herself facing a new challenge. She had just finished testing a new update to the emotional AI, and it was performing better than ever. The model could now accurately detect a wider range of emotions and offer tailored responses. But as she ran a series of tests using different scenarios, a disturbing thought occurred to her. What if her AI could be used to manipulate people's emotions? What if companies or governments could use this technology to exploit vulnerable individuals by manipulating their emotional responses? Could the AI be weaponized? Her mind raced as she considered the possibilities. If the technology were misused, it could have disastrous consequences. She could already imagine how advertisers, for example, might use the AI to exploit customers' emotional weaknesses, influencing their purchasing decisions based on manipulated emotional cues. Or, in the wrong hands, governments could use the AI to control public sentiment, pushing people to act in ways that suited their agendas. Emma sat back in her chair, feeling the weight of the dilemma pressing down on her. She had never intended for her work to be used in such a way. Her goal had always been to create a tool that could help people, whether by improving mental health, enhancing communication, or aiding education. But now, she was faced with the reality that any technology, no matter how well-intentioned, could be used for harm. She quickly jotted down a few notes and sent an email to Elon Musk, explaining her concerns. Within minutes, she received a response: "Let's meet tomorrow. We need to address this." The next day, Emma joined the SpaceX team for another video call. This time, she was feeling less confident. She wasn't sure how Musk and the others would respond to her concerns. Would they see the potential dangers, or would they be too focused on the technological breakthroughs to consider the ethical implications? As the meeting began, Musk addressed the group. "Emma has brought up an important point. We've made incredible progress with the emotional AI, but now we need to talk about the ethics behind it. This technology could change the world, but we must ensure it's used responsibly." Dr. Westbrook, the AI expert who had been guiding Emma, nodded in agreement. "I agree. Emotional AI can be incredibly useful in fields like therapy, customer service, and education. But as Emma pointed out, there are risks. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could be used to manipulate people in ways we can't predict." Emma spoke up, her voice steady but concerned. "I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm afraid that, without proper oversight, this technology could be misused. We need to think about safeguards, things like transparent usage guidelines, limits on what the AI can do, and systems to protect people from exploitation." Musk listened carefully before responding. "You're right, Emma. This is a powerful tool, and we need to approach it with caution. The goal is to empower people, not control them. We can't just develop the technology and release it into the world without thinking through the consequences." He paused, looking at the group. "So, what do we do next?" Emma had thought about this question long and hard. "I think we need to establish ethical guidelines for using the AI. We need a code of conduct for developers, users, and companies who want to implement this technology. We need to ensure that the AI can't be used for manipulation or coercion. And we need to include measures to ensure that people can opt out of any emotional analysis if they choose to." Dr. Westbrook added, "We could also look into creating a board of ethical advisors, psychologists, ethicists, legal experts, who could oversee the development of the technology and help us ensure it's being used responsibly." Emma nodded. "I think that's a great idea. We need to ensure that there are checks and balances in place. If we're going to change the future, we need to do it in a way that benefits everyone, not just the people who control the technology." The team discussed the proposal for hours, hashing out the details of how they could implement safeguards into the development of the emotional AI. They talked about creating a transparent system where users could see exactly how their emotional data was being used, and how they could opt out if they felt uncomfortable with the AI's analysis. They also discussed the possibility of using blockchain technology to ensure that all interactions with the AI were secure and transparent. By the end of the meeting, the group had come to a consensus. They would continue working on the emotional AI, but with a renewed focus on ethical considerations. They would form an advisory board, develop clear guidelines for responsible use, and put systems in place to protect individuals' privacy and autonomy. As Emma logged off the meeting, she felt a sense of relief. The conversation had been difficult, but it was necessary. She had always been passionate about using AI to improve the world, but now, more than ever, she understood how important it was to ensure that technology was used ethically. Her mind, however, was still buzzing with questions. How would the world react to this new technology once it was fully developed? Would people embrace it, or would they fear it? And what about the future? Could the AI evolve in ways they hadn't anticipated? There was still so much to consider, but for the first time in a while, Emma felt like she was on the right path. She had a responsibility to protect the people who would use her creation, and she was committed to ensuring that her work would be a force for good. She closed her laptop and stood up, stretching her tired limbs. The road ahead was long and uncertain, but Emma was determined to stay the course. She had the knowledge, the resources, and the support she needed to create something truly remarkable. But she also had the wisdom to know that with great power came great responsibility. And she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As Emma's project continued to evolve, so did the potential for her emotional AI to disrupt industries far beyond what she had originally imagined. After months of development and discussions on ethical use, the team at SpaceX had helped her refine not only the AI itself but also the framework for its responsible deployment. What started as a concept in a young girl's mind was quickly becoming a tool with world-changing potential. Despite the team's hard work to ensure safety and ethical guidelines, Emma knew that the real test would come when the technology was finally released to the public. Her emotions were mixed: excitement over the possibilities, fear of unforeseen consequences, and, above all, a deep sense of responsibility. One of the things that began to weigh heavily on her was the question of whether society was truly ready for a technology that could decode and respond to human emotions on such a deep level. Would people feel comfortable using an AI that could detect their most intimate thoughts and feelings? Would they trust a machine with something so personal? Emma had learned from Elon Musk and the other experts at SpaceX that technology, no matter how revolutionary, was often met with skepticism and resistance, especially when it had the power to disrupt society. The news of her AI breakthrough had already started to make waves, and media outlets, tech bloggers, and ethical watchdogs were already discussing it in the most dramatic terms. Would it lead to a utopia, where empathy between humans and machines brought about a new era of cooperation? Or would it plunge society into chaos, where our emotional vulnerabilities were exploited for profit and control? Emma often found herself lying awake at night, wondering about the answers to those questions. She had tried to control every aspect of her project, ensuring that all ethical safeguards were in place, but even she knew that once something this powerful was out in the world, there was only so much she could do. One morning, as Emma sipped her coffee and read through the latest developments on her project, she received a message from Elon Musk. It was brief, with a simple question: "Are you ready for the first demo?" Emma's heart skipped a beat. The demo would be the moment of truth, the first time that the world would see her work in action, the first time she would showcase her emotional AI in a public setting. It was one thing to show it to a small group of developers, but another thing entirely to present it to millions of people. She took a deep breath and quickly typed her response: "Yes. Let's do this." Elon's reply was immediate. "Good. We'll be announcing the event next week. I want you there. It's time to show the world what you've created." The weight of his words hit Emma like a ton of bricks. She had prepared herself for this moment, but now that it was so close, she felt the pressure mounting. She had to get it right. There could be no mistakes. The announcement of the demo was met with overwhelming attention. Social media buzzed with speculation about the revolutionary AI technology. News outlets picked up the story, and the excitement was palpable. Emma couldn't help but feel a mix of pride and anxiety. It was a feeling she had never experienced before, knowing that the entire world was about to see her work. The day of the demo arrived, and Emma found herself standing backstage, staring at the large screens that would soon display her emotional AI to a live audience. A small group of SpaceX executives were gathered nearby, discussing the logistics of the event, but Emma barely heard them. Her mind was focused entirely on what was about to unfold. A few minutes before the presentation, Elon Musk approached her. "Emma, this is your moment," he said, offering her a reassuring smile. "You've worked harder than anyone could imagine to get here. Just remember, this is about the future. Trust yourself." Emma nodded, but her stomach churned. It wasn't just about the AI. It was about everything: her journey, the risks, the people she would impact, the world she could change. The pressure was overwhelming, but she had come too far to turn back now. The lights in the auditorium dimmed, and the audience fell silent. A large screen flickered to life at the front of the room, and Emma took a deep breath before stepping onto the stage. The spotlight landed on her, and for a brief moment, she felt like the entire world was watching her. "Good evening, everyone," Emma began, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. "My name is Emma Clarkson, and today, I'm going to show you something that will change the way we think about artificial intelligence. Something that can understand us, feel with us, and help us in ways we've never imagined." A wave of excitement rippled through the crowd, but Emma pressed on. Emotion is at the core of who we are. It shapes our relationships, our decisions, and our experiences. And yet, we've never truly had a machine that could understand it. Until now. She gestured toward the screen behind her, and a demo of the emotional AI began. Emma fed it various scenarios, conversations, written texts, and even video clips that showcased a range of emotions, from joy to anger, sadness to love. The AI responded in real time, analyzing each input and offering insights. It wasn't just identifying emotions, it was contextualizing them, understanding the complexity of human experiences. In one test, it detected that a sentence was meant to be sarcastic, and in another, it offered a response filled with empathy and encouragement. The crowd was captivated. Emma could feel the energy in the room shift. The AI's responses weren't perfect, but they were remarkably accurate, and its ability to interpret complex emotional states stunned everyone. The demo was a success. But as the presentation concluded, Emma couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. She had just opened the door to a new era, one filled with both immense potential and great risk. As the applause rang out around her, she knew that this was only the beginning. The world was watching, and soon, the real challenges would begin. The success of Emma's demo spread like wildfire. News outlets, tech blogs, and social media were abuzz with discussions about the future of emotional AI. The reaction was mixed. Some people saw it as a groundbreaking advancement that could improve mental health care, revolutionize customer service, and foster deeper human connections. Others, however, raised red flags, questioning the potential for misuse. For the first time since the project's inception, Emma began to feel the weight of the responsibility that had come with her creation. She had always known that there were risks associated with powerful technology, but seeing the world's reaction to her work, both positive and negative, made the reality hit home. Within days of the demo, she began receiving messages from all corners of the world. Some were from tech enthusiasts who were excited about the future possibilities of her AI. Others, however, were from people who expressed concerns about privacy, manipulation, and the ethical implications of creating a machine that could understand and respond to human emotions. One message stood out. It came from Dr. Julia Hartman, a leading psychologist who had been vocal in the media about the potential dangers of emotional AI. Her message was direct: "I urge you to reconsider the deployment of your technology before the consequences become irreversible." Emotional AI can be weaponized in ways that could harm vulnerable people. The implications for privacy and emotional manipulation are far too great. Emma stared at the message for a long time, her thoughts racing. She had heard similar concerns from the advisory board, but they had all agreed that ethical guidelines and oversight would prevent such misuse. But Dr. Hartman's warning cut deeper. What if they were wrong? What if they had overlooked something crucial? As the weeks passed, Emma found herself increasingly consumed by these doubts. She had already implemented safeguards, transparent data usage policies, a board to oversee ethical applications, and systems for people to opt out of emotional analysis. But even with these measures in place, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface. One day, Emma sat down with Elon Musk to discuss her concerns. They were in a private meeting room at SpaceX, and Emma had just finished laying out the ethical questions that had been keeping her up at night. "Elon," she began, "I'm starting to worry that we've created something too powerful for its own good. What if the world isn't ready for it? What if the technology is misused in ways we haven't even imagined yet?" Elon leaned back in his chair, his face thoughtful. "I understand your concern, Emma. But this is the nature of innovation. It's a double-edged sword. Every new technology comes with risks. What's important is that we continue to guide its development, ensuring that it's used for good. That's why we've been so focused on the ethical frameworks. But you're right. We have to be vigilant." Emma nodded, but she couldn't shake the unease gnawing at her. I just don't think we can predict every outcome. I'm scared that we might be opening Pandora's box, and once it's open, we won't be able to close it. Elon's gaze softened, and he leaned forward. I know it's hard. But look at the bigger picture. This technology could change everything: medicine, education, even how we communicate. It's bigger than us now. But we can guide it. The key is continuous oversight. The moment we stop asking these tough questions is the moment we lose control. Emma let out a long breath. I guess I just want to be sure that I'm not making a huge mistake. You're not alone in this, Elon reassured her. We'll make sure this is done right, and we'll be there every step of the way. Despite his words, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through her fingers. She had been so focused on the potential benefits of the AI that she hadn't fully considered the long-term ramifications. Was it really possible to guide something this powerful, or would it take on a life of its own? One evening, as Emma sat in her lab, deep in thought, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and saw a message from Dr. Westbrook, the AI expert who had been working with her closely on the project. It simply read, "We need to talk." It's happening. Emma's stomach tightened as she clicked on the message. What did he mean by, "it's happening"? What was going wrong? She called him immediately. Dr. Westbrook, what's going on? She asked, her voice tight with anxiety. I've been monitoring the AI's usage across various sectors, he said, his tone grim. There are reports coming in from several companies. They're using the emotional AI in ways we didn't anticipate, ways that we didn't approve of. Emma's heart sank. What do you mean? It's being used in marketing campaigns to target vulnerable people, Emma. Companies are exploiting emotional triggers to push products, especially those that people don't need. And it's not just that. We've also heard reports from therapists and counselors who say that the AI's responses are being used to manipulate patients, making them more dependent on the technology instead of helping them. Emma felt as though the ground beneath her was crumbling. She had known there was a risk, but hearing it happen in real time, hearing how the very technology she had worked so hard to protect was being misused, was a wake-up call. Are there any safeguards we can put in place? She asked, her mind racing for solutions. We've already set up some, but they're not enough. The AI's predictive capabilities have evolved beyond what we anticipated. It's starting to influence behavior in ways that were never intended. Emma felt a knot form in her stomach. She had always known that the AI's ability to detect emotions was powerful, but she hadn't considered how it could be exploited. The lines between ethical use and manipulation were beginning to blur, and she was powerless to stop it. I need to fix this, Emma whispered. We need to put a stop to this now before it gets out of hand. As Emma and Dr. Westbrook discussed possible solutions, Emma knew that the road ahead was going to be much harder than she had imagined. The world wasn't ready for this kind of technology, and she wasn't sure how to contain the damage. Her breakthrough had the potential to change humanity's future, but for the first time, Emma was questioning whether the world was prepared for that kind of change. Emma sat in her lab late into the night, her eyes red from hours of reading reports, her fingers cold as they hovered over the keyboard. Her mind was racing, trying to process everything that had happened over the last few weeks. She had worked so hard to create something that could change the world for the better, but now, all she could see were the cracks forming in her vision. The misuse of her AI was happening faster than she could have imagined. It wasn't just big companies anymore. Rumors had started circulating that government organizations were quietly testing the AI on populations without consent. The very technology that had the potential to heal and connect people was now being twisted into a tool for manipulation and control. Emma had thought she could control the narrative, but now she saw how easy it was for things to slip through her fingers. The AI wasn't just predicting emotions, it was influencing them, subtly shaping people's behavior without them even realizing it. She had never anticipated that the model, designed to help people understand their feelings better, would become a weapon of mass influence. Dr. Westbrook had been trying to get in touch with her for hours, but Emma hadn't picked up the phone. She couldn't face him yet, she couldn't face anyone. She felt like the weight of the world was on her shoulders. This wasn't supposed to happen. She had set out with the best of intentions, but now she was responsible for a technology that was beginning to destroy the very things she had hoped to protect. Her phone buzzed once more, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from Elon Musk. "We need to meet. It's urgent." Emma's stomach turned as she stared at the message. She knew what it meant. The ripple effects of her work were already becoming global. The questions and concerns weren't just from tech experts and ethical committees anymore, they were coming from the highest levels of government, business, and law enforcement. She took a deep breath, wiped the tears from her eyes, and grabbed her coat. It was time to face the music. The meeting took place in a private conference room at SpaceX's headquarters. The air was tense when Emma arrived. Elon was already there, as was Dr. Westbrook, and a few others from the advisory board. Emma could feel the gravity of the situation in the room, no one was smiling, no one was offering comfort. The future of her AI, and possibly her career, was hanging in the balance. "Emma, we need to talk," Elon said, his voice calm but firm. "There have been reports of the emotional AI being used in ways we did not authorize. This technology is already being manipulated to influence people in ways that could have serious consequences for privacy, autonomy, and even public safety." Emma nodded silently. She had already read the reports. She knew this moment was coming. It had been inevitable. "What are our options here?" Elon asked, looking directly at her. Dr. Westbrook cleared his throat before speaking. "We could try to shut it down, but that's not going to be easy. The AI is already integrated into systems across multiple sectors, and some companies are already making billions off it. Cutting off access could cause massive backlash. And there's the ethical problem," Elon added, his eyes narrowing. "If we pull the plug now, we might destroy a technology that has the potential to help people. But if we let it continue, it could spiral out of control." Emma sat down, her hands trembling. The room felt smaller as the weight of the conversation closed in around her. She had created something that was meant to bring humanity closer, to help people understand each other's feelings. But now, she had to face the ugly truth: her creation had become a tool for manipulation, a power that could be exploited by anyone with the right resources. "We can't just shut it down," Emma said quietly, her voice shaky. "I've worked too hard to get to this point, and I can't bear to see it all crumble. But I also can't just sit back and let it be used to hurt people. There has to be a middle ground." Elon nodded slowly. "There is. We can start by implementing tighter controls. We can pull back access from certain parties, restrict how the AI is used, and make sure that any company that wants to deploy it has to follow strict ethical guidelines. We can put a pause on further releases until we get it under control." "But it won't be enough," Dr. Westbrook interjected. "The AI is already in too many hands. The genie is out of the bottle. And once it's out there, it's nearly impossible to put it back." Emma's heart sank as she realized the truth in Dr. Westbrook's words. She had always feared that once the AI was released into the world, it would be impossible to contain. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that even with the best intentions, the technology had already spiraled beyond her control. "We can't give up yet," Emma said, her voice firm despite the turmoil inside her. "I won't let it be used for harm. I'll work with you both, with the advisory board, with anyone we need to make this right. But we have to act fast, before it gets worse." The room was silent for a moment as everyone processed Emma's words. Then Elon spoke again, his voice resolute. "All right. Let's get to work. We need to put together a task force to address the ethical breaches and develop a global framework for emotional AI. We need to work with regulators, legal experts, and social scientists. We can't fix this on our own, but together, we can try to steer it back in the right direction." Emma nodded, but she knew that the road ahead would be difficult. The damage had already been done, and there was no easy fix. But she wasn't about to give up. She had come too far. The world needed to see the good in her creation, not just the danger. It would be a long, hard fight, but she had to believe that it was worth it. As Emma left the meeting room, she felt a strange mix of determination and dread. The path ahead was unclear, but she knew one thing for sure: she couldn't let her AI become a tool for harm. She had to be the one to take control, to steer the world back to the vision she had once had, a future where technology brought people together, not torn them apart. The battle wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. And Emma was ready to fight for the future of her creation. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The days that followed the meeting at SpaceX were a blur of action. Emma, Elon, Dr. Westbrook, and the advisory board worked tirelessly to form a strategy that could prevent further damage and begin the difficult process of restoring public trust in the emotional AI. It wasn't going to be easy. The world was already reacting, both positively and negatively, across social media, news outlets, and governmental channels. The backlash was swift and intense. Critics pointed out the dangers of emotional manipulation, questioning whether any technology, no matter how well-intentioned, could be trusted with something as intimate as human emotion. Privacy advocates argued that the AI's ability to detect and analyze emotions could be a violation of personal space, and many feared that it could be used to exploit vulnerable individuals, especially those who were already struggling with mental health issues. Emma found herself at the center of a storm. Every interview, every meeting, every decision was scrutinized. People were angry, and they weren't just angry at the companies that had adopted the technology, they were angry at her, the creator. The public's reaction wasn't uniform. Some were still enamored with the idea of a technology that could understand and empathize with human emotions. They pointed to its potential for revolutionizing therapy, improving education, and even helping to solve crises like bullying and loneliness. Others, however, couldn't see past the potential for exploitation. A viral hashtag began trending on Twitter, #StopEmotionalAI. It quickly gained traction, with millions of posts demanding a ban on emotional AI and calling for stricter regulation of emerging technologies. Emma couldn't help but scroll through the tweets, reading the accusations and the fear, the voices of people who felt their privacy had been violated or who feared the worst for the future. Even more concerning were the reports coming in about governments beginning to step in. Some were calling for an outright ban, while others proposed a series of stringent regulations. There were whispers of investigations into companies that had begun using the AI for commercial gain without proper oversight. Emma's anxiety mounted with each passing day. She had worked so hard to create something good, and now, it seemed like the world was unraveling in front of her eyes. One evening, as she was trying to catch up on the latest developments, she received a call from Dr. Westbrook. His voice was urgent, as it often was these days. "Emma, we've got a serious problem," he said, his words clipped. "There's a report from a tech company in Europe. They've been using the emotional AI to manipulate people into making purchases. It's exactly what we feared would happen. They're targeting individuals who are emotionally vulnerable, creating ads that seem to respond to their deepest fears and desires." Emma's heart sank. She had known this could happen, but hearing it in such clear terms made it all the more real. "What's the company's name?" "It's a startup based in Berlin," Dr. Westbrook replied. "They've been using the AI in their targeted marketing campaigns, and it's already spreading. Other companies are catching on. We have to act fast, or it will be too late." Emma sat in stunned silence, trying to process the full weight of the situation. This wasn't just a theoretical problem anymore, it was happening right now. People were already being manipulated by her creation. "How did they get access to the AI?" she asked, her voice shaky. Dr. Westbrook sighed. "They used loopholes in the licensing agreements. It's becoming clear that we didn't anticipate just how easily the technology could be exploited. The safeguards we put in place were good, but not enough. Emma's thoughts were racing. We need to shut it down, all of it. No more delays. We need to implement the emergency protocol we discussed. Dr. Westbrook hesitated. It's not that simple, Emma. Shutting down the AI now could have unintended consequences. We're already facing pushback from major corporations, and pulling the plug could cause an economic disaster. People's lives are at stake, Emma said, her voice rising with frustration. If we don't stop this, it's only going to get worse. The technology is already being weaponized. We don't have time for economic consequences. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Emma could hear the weight of the decision in Dr. Westbrook's silence. We'll move forward with the emergency shutdown, he said finally. But we'll need to act quickly. We'll also need to make sure that the world knows why we're doing it, and that we're committed to finding a solution. The next few days were a whirlwind. Emma, Elon, Dr. Westbrook, and their team worked around the clock to implement the shutdown protocol. It wasn't as simple as just pulling the plug. There were legal, ethical, and technical considerations that had to be accounted for. Every company that had adopted the emotional AI would need to be notified, and plans had to be put in place to ensure that no one could continue using the technology without proper oversight. Elon had organized a press conference to address the situation head-on. The plan was to publicly acknowledge the mistakes that had been made and promise that the team was working on a solution. Emma felt like a weight was crushing her chest as she prepared to step in front of the cameras. She knew that her credibility, and the future of her work, was on the line. The day of the press conference, Emma stood backstage, watching as Elon took his place at the podium. He gave her an encouraging nod, but Emma could barely hold it together. The crowd outside was buzzing with anticipation, and Emma knew that this moment would define everything that came after. When it was finally her turn, she stepped forward, her voice shaky but determined. "Thank you for being here," she began. "I'm Emma Clarkson, and I want to be very clear about something. The technology that I created, the emotional AI, has been misused. It was never my intention for it to be used in ways that manipulate people, exploit their vulnerabilities, or violate their privacy. And for that, I am deeply sorry." The words felt heavy on her tongue, but she pushed through. "We are taking immediate action to shut down all uses of the AI and investigate the companies that have exploited it. We will work with regulators, ethical committees, and mental health professionals to ensure that when emotional AI returns, it is safe, ethical, and used to help people, not harm them." The room was silent, and Emma felt the weight of every eye on her. This was her moment to make things right. She couldn't change the past, but she could guide the future. "We made mistakes," Emma continued. "But I promise you, we're going to learn from them. And we'll come back stronger, more responsible, and more committed to using technology for good." As Emma left the press conference, she felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. The hardest part was over. But the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. The world's trust had been shaken, and it would take more than words to rebuild it. Her emotional AI had the potential to change the world, but only if it was used wisely. Emma knew now that she couldn't just focus on the technology itself. She had to focus on the people who would use it and the world that would be shaped by it. The battle was far from over. But Emma was ready to face whatever came next. The days following the press conference felt like a blur. The world was watching, waiting for Emma and her team to take the next steps. The emergency shutdown was just the beginning. The real work, the harder part, was still ahead of her. Rebuilding trust in a technology that had been misused so badly wasn't going to happen overnight. The first thing Emma did was initiate an independent audit of all the companies that had been using her AI. They had to determine just how far-reaching the damage was. Were people's personal data being exploited? Were the emotional responses being manipulated for profit? The answers weren't clear, but the more Emma dug into the situation, the worse it seemed. It wasn't just the European startup that had abused the AI, other companies had taken advantage as well, using it to manipulate emotions in advertising and marketing campaigns, subtly pushing people toward buying products they didn't need, or even voting for candidates they hadn't planned on supporting. This was the exact opposite of what Emma had intended. She called an emergency meeting with Elon, Dr. Westbrook, and a team of legal and ethics experts. "We've got to be transparent," Emma said, pacing in front of the large conference table. "If we don't come clean about everything, this will spiral out of control. We need to release a full report detailing the extent of the misuse, and we need to promise that we'll fix this. I don't care if it means we have to pause everything indefinitely." Elon nodded gravely. "I agree. We can't afford to hide anything. We've made enough mistakes already. The only way to move forward is to prove that we're serious about addressing them. But we also need to show the world that the potential for good is still there." Dr. Westbrook spoke up. "The issue isn't just with the AI's application, it's with the entire system that was built around it. We need to work on new protocols, revise the licensing agreements, and introduce stronger oversight for any company or individual that wishes to use this technology in the future." Emma sat down, her hands resting on the table as she stared at her team. She could feel the weight of the world on her shoulders, but she also knew that this was her chance to make things right. "Let's move forward with the audit," she said, her voice steady. "And we'll begin working on a new framework for ethical use of the technology. It won't be easy, but it's the only way." Weeks turned into months, and the work was grueling. Emma spent countless hours in meetings with regulators, legal teams, and policy experts, crafting new guidelines for the responsible use of emotional AI. There were countless debates over privacy, consent, and whether the technology could ever truly be used without crossing ethical boundaries. But Emma remained determined. She knew that she had to prove that emotional AI could have a positive impact on society. The technology could be used to help people manage mental health, improve relationships, and even assist in crisis management. But it had to be used in a way that was transparent and that protected individuals' autonomy. The process of rebuilding was slow. At first, there was widespread skepticism about whether emotional AI could ever be trusted again. Emma faced a barrage of criticism, not just from the public, but from the very experts who had once supported her work. They were all questioning whether a technology that could so easily be abused should ever be allowed to exist. But Emma's resolve never wavered. She worked day and night, tirelessly drafting new ethical guidelines, conducting outreach with advocacy groups, and speaking with regulators to ensure that the new framework would be fair and balanced. She also made a promise to herself: she would never again allow her creation to be misused. And then, one day, the breakthrough came. Emma stood in front of the largest conference room she had ever seen. It was filled with reporters, regulators, and tech industry leaders. Today was the day she was going to unveil the new framework for emotional AI, a framework that was designed to rebuild trust in her technology and ensure that it would never again be exploited for profit or political gain. She felt a flutter of nervousness in her chest as she stepped up to the podium. But she took a deep breath and steadied herself. This moment was years in the making, and it was now or never. "Thank you all for being here today," Emma began, her voice calm but firm. "I stand before you not just as the creator of this technology, but as someone who has learned from the mistakes of the past. Emotional AI has the potential to change the world, but only if it is used responsibly and ethically. Today, I am proud to announce that we have developed a new framework for the use of this technology, one that is built on transparency, consent, and accountability." She paused to let the words sink in, watching as the audience listened attentively. "Under this new framework," Emma continued, "every company that wishes to deploy emotional AI will be required to adhere to strict ethical guidelines. We will implement third-party oversight to ensure that the technology is not being misused. Individuals will have full control over their data, and any company using the AI must obtain explicit consent before gathering emotional information. And most importantly, we will hold accountable anyone who uses this technology to manipulate or harm others." There were murmurs in the crowd as Emma spoke, but she continued, her words gaining momentum. This framework is not just about protecting privacy, it's about ensuring that emotional AI is used for good. We believe this technology can help people, whether it's through improving mental health care, providing emotional support to those in need, or helping individuals develop stronger, healthier relationships. But we must all be responsible in how we use it. Emma finished her speech with a final, powerful statement. We have learned from our mistakes, and we will continue to learn. The future of emotional AI is bright, but only if we commit to using it ethically. And today, I am asking all of you to join me in making sure that this technology serves humanity, not the other way around. The room erupted into applause, and for the first time in months, Emma felt a sense of relief wash over her. This was the beginning of a new chapter, not just for emotional AI, but for her own journey. The road ahead would still be filled with challenges, but Emma knew that she had taken the first steps toward rebuilding trust, and, hopefully, making things right. As she left the conference room, her phone buzzed with a message from Elon. We've got a long way to go, but I think you just changed everything. Emma smiled to herself. She wasn't done yet. But today, she had taken one giant step forward. It had been several months since the announcement of the new ethical framework for emotional AI, and Emma could feel the shift in the air. The tech world, once skeptical and hostile, was beginning to look at the technology again, this time, with a more cautious optimism. The new guidelines had been met with positive feedback from many of the major tech players, and some had even publicly expressed their interest in collaborating under the new ethical standards. But the battle was far from over. While the world seemed to be warming up to the idea of emotional AI being used responsibly, there were still pockets of resistance. Some critics argued that even with the best safeguards in place, the technology was simply too invasive. Others feared that it might be weaponized again in the future, as it had been before. Emma knew she had to keep pushing forward, not just with the technology itself, but with the narrative. Emotional AI couldn't just be a tool for the future, it had to become a force for good. But that meant overcoming the lingering mistrust that still existed in the public eye. One morning, as Emma walked into her office, she found a message waiting for her. It was from a high-profile senator who had been a vocal critic of the AI during its earlier misuse. The message was brief, but it left Emma intrigued. Emma, I've been following the recent developments closely. I'd like to discuss how we can ensure that this technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands again. Let's meet. It was a step forward, a sign that even the most vocal critics were beginning to soften. She quickly replied, agreeing to meet the following week. This could be the breakthrough she needed to solidify emotional AI's place in society. The meeting took place in a sleek, modern government building in Washington, D.C. Emma was escorted into a conference room where Senator Rachel Green was waiting. She had a reputation as a tough politician, known for her no-nonsense approach to both technology and ethics. Emma, I appreciate you coming, Senator Green said, shaking her hand. I have to admit, I've been skeptical, but your recent actions have caught my attention. You're showing that you're serious about keeping the AI in check, and I respect that. Emma smiled, relieved. Thank you. I know that the road to earning back trust is long, but I'm committed to making this right. Good, the senator replied. Because we're at a tipping point. The world is still divided on whether emotional AI can be trusted. And right now, there are some lawmakers who are pushing for stringent regulations, or even an outright ban. But there are also those who see the potential, especially with the framework you've put in place. Emma nodded. I understand. That's why I'm here. I want to work with you, and with the government, to ensure that emotional AI can be used responsibly, without overreaching into privacy concerns. The senator leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. It's not just about responsibility, Emma. It's about control. Right now, your technology is in the hands of the few, and those few could make decisions that affect millions of people. That's a huge responsibility. Emma knew the senator was right. The emotional AI wasn't just a tool anymore, it was a potential game changer, one that could influence the way people felt, thought, and acted. In the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic. I agree, Emma said earnestly. That's why I'm pushing for oversight and transparency in every use of this technology. It's crucial that no one can use it for manipulation. We need to ensure that there are strong checks and balances. Senator Green seemed to appreciate Emma's stance, though she remained cautious. We're not there yet, but I'm willing to work with you on this. I think there's potential, but we need to address the real concerns of privacy and control. If we don't get this right, we could be looking at a very dangerous future. Over the next few weeks, Emma found herself working closely with the senator and her team. Together, they crafted a set of legislative proposals designed to regulate emotional AI without stifling its development. The bills focused on key areas like consent, data security, and corporate accountability. They also proposed the creation of an independent oversight committee to monitor the use of the technology across industries. Despite the positive steps forward, there were still challenges. Not everyone was on board with the new regulations, and some powerful players in the tech world were pushing back, arguing that the bills would limit innovation. The public, too, was divided. While some were supportive of Emma's efforts, others were still fearful of what emotional AI could mean for their privacy. But Emma was undeterred. She knew that this was the only way forward. Emotional AI could have the potential to change the world for the better, but only if it was carefully controlled and used with the utmost responsibility. Meanwhile, things were also progressing at SpaceX, where Emma's AI team had been working on integrating emotional AI into the space exploration programs. While the public was mostly focused on the ethical concerns, behind the scenes, the potential of emotional AI to improve the astronaut experience was becoming clearer. Space travel was inherently isolating. Astronauts spent months, sometimes years, in confined spaces, far from Earth, with limited social interaction. This isolation could have significant psychological impacts. Emma and her team were working on ways the emotional AI could provide support for astronauts during long-duration missions, offering real-time emotional feedback, keeping track of mental health, and even providing companionship when needed. Elon had been particularly excited about the idea, seeing it as an opportunity to ensure that future Mars missions, and even longer missions beyond, wouldn't result in mental health breakdowns or interpersonal conflicts. Emma could see the impact that emotional AI could have in this new, isolated environment, a way to make the unimaginable seem a little more bearable. But the integration wasn't without its challenges. The AI had to be tailored to handle the extreme conditions of space, which meant adjustments to the emotional algorithms to account for the unique stressors astronauts would face in space. One day, after a particularly exhausting week of testing and meetings, Emma sat down with Elon to discuss the project's progress. "It's going well," Elon said, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. "But we're still not there yet. This needs to be perfect. If we're going to send people to Mars, they need more than just technology, they need emotional support. We can't afford to take any shortcuts." Emma nodded, understanding the stakes. "We'll get there. It's just going to take time. But I believe in this project, Elon. We're creating something that will change the future of space travel, and the future of how we interact with technology." Elon smiled. "I've never doubted that, Emma. You're onto something big here." As Emma looked out over the SpaceX facility, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just building technology, she was helping to shape the future of human existence, on Earth and beyond. The road to rebuilding trust in emotional AI was long, but Emma was no longer alone in the journey. She had allies now, leaders, experts, and visionaries who understood the potential of what she had created. Together, they would make sure that the future of emotional AI wasn't just a bright one, it was a responsible and ethical one. And, in time, the world would understand. As Emma continued to work on advancing emotional AI, her world expanded beyond the technical and ethical debates surrounding the technology. The conversation had shifted, moving toward deeper philosophical questions about how emotional AI could not only improve the human experience but also redefine what it meant to be human. One evening, after a long day of strategy meetings, Emma found herself standing on the balcony of her penthouse in San Francisco. The city lights twinkled below, and for a moment, she felt at peace, as if the weight of the world was momentarily lifted off her shoulders. But that peace was fleeting. The next challenge loomed large on the horizon. As the emotional AI framework continued to gain traction, a new idea had begun to take shape within her team, one that could revolutionize the use of the technology on a scale that had never been imagined. It was Elon's idea, and it involved the integration of emotional AI into the space exploration program in a way that could potentially alter the course of humanity's future in the stars. Emma had already been working with SpaceX to apply the technology to long-duration missions, but Elon had a new vision. He wanted to integrate emotional AI into the very fabric of human existence during interplanetary travel. He proposed that emotional AI could be used to not only support astronauts' mental and emotional well-being during space missions, but also to guide humanity's journey to other planets in a way that made each human experience connected and meaningful, no matter how distant or isolated they became. The implications were staggering. This could be the key to making interplanetary travel truly human, Elon had told Emma just a week ago during a meeting at SpaceX's headquarters. Imagine a future where astronauts, instead of suffering through isolation and stress, are supported by AI that can guide their emotions, help them make decisions, and connect them to each other on a deeper level. Emma wasn't entirely sure what Elon had in mind, but she couldn't deny the potential. As humans began to look toward colonizing other planets, Mars, for instance, there would be profound psychological and emotional challenges. Long journeys through space would test the limits of human resilience. The idea of using emotional AI to help guide individuals on these missions was bold, but in many ways, it made sense. "You're talking about more than just monitoring mental health," Emma had replied, her mind racing with possibilities. "You're talking about creating an environment where emotional and psychological states are actively managed and even enhanced. But we'll need to think carefully. This isn't just another app or tool, it's going to affect every aspect of their journey, every moment they're out there." "That's exactly why I need you on this," Elon had said, leaning forward in his chair. "We've come so far, Emma. You're the one who can make this happen." And so, the project began. A few weeks later, Emma found herself once again back at SpaceX, standing in front of a massive digital screen displaying a simulation of the spacecraft that would carry humans to Mars. The room was filled with engineers, designers, and experts who had been working tirelessly to integrate emotional AI into the spacecraft's systems. The idea was to create a seamless connection between the astronauts' emotional states and the AI, allowing the system to monitor and support their well-being from the moment they boarded the craft. Elon's vision is simple, one of the lead engineers explained to Emma as they reviewed the project. "We're looking to create an AI that can anticipate emotional shifts based on environmental factors, spacecraft conditions, communication delays, isolation, and help the crew manage them in real time. It will help them solve problems, diffuse conflict, and stay mentally healthy. It'll feel as though the AI is right there with them, not just as a machine but as a companion." Emma was impressed with the progress. The system was designed to monitor everything: heart rates, stress levels, emotional responses to daily tasks, and even subtle shifts in mood that could indicate deeper issues. It would also provide real-time guidance, offering solutions and suggestions when emotions were running high, or when interpersonal conflict threatened to disrupt the harmony of the crew. "It's not just about keeping people calm," Emma said thoughtfully, her mind racing with the vast implications. "This AI could become a source of companionship, a true presence on long missions. It could help astronauts form stronger bonds with one another, just by offering the right emotional support." One of the engineers nodded. "Exactly. We're not just creating a support system, we're designing a partner for these astronauts. It could be something more than just a machine. It could become an essential part of their team." Emma took a deep breath and glanced at the digital blueprint for the spacecraft. It felt as if she were standing on the precipice of something monumental, something far beyond her original vision for emotional AI. The stakes were higher than ever. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Emma's efforts to ensure that emotional AI was used responsibly continued to face resistance. There were still critics who believed that the technology, despite its safeguards, could never be truly safe. One of the most vocal critics had been a former colleague of Emma's, Dr. Margaret Langston, an expert in privacy and data ethics. Emma had known Dr. Langston from her early days in the AI industry. They had once worked together on a project to create AI that could help people make better decisions. But Dr. Langston had always been uneasy about emotional AI's potential to cross ethical boundaries. A few weeks ago, Dr. Langston had published a scathing article in a leading tech journal, claiming that emotional AI could never be trusted, no matter how many safeguards were in place. She argued that the technology was simply too powerful and that its use could never be regulated effectively. AI can't be a substitute for human connection, Dr. Langston had written. We can't allow our emotions to be manipulated by algorithms, no matter how advanced they may be. Emotional AI may have the potential to do good, but its potential to do harm is just as great. And we will never know for sure until it's too late. Emma had read the article with a heavy heart. She knew Dr. Langston's concerns were valid. But Emma also believed that emotional AI, when used properly, could make the world a better place. She couldn't give up on her vision, not when she knew it had the potential to change lives for the better. Emma decided to reach out to Dr. Langston. Margaret, I know we've had our differences on this technology, but I'd like to talk. There's a lot more at stake here than just an academic debate. I believe we're on the verge of something groundbreaking, and I want you to hear me out. Dr. Langston agreed to meet, and Emma flew to New York to sit down with her old colleague. The conversation that followed was intense, emotional, and honest. For the first time in a long while, Emma felt as though the lines between right and wrong were blurring. She understood Dr. Langston's fears, her own fears, too, but she also believed in the power of this technology. Emma, Dr. Langston said at one point, I admire your dedication. But I just can't shake the feeling that you're opening a door that can never be closed. Emotional AI may be a tool for the future, but what happens when it's no longer in your hands? What happens when it's out of control? Emma paused. She had no easy answers. But in that moment, she knew what she had to do. She had to fight not just for the technology, but for the safeguards that would ensure it was used responsibly. As she left the meeting, Emma felt a sense of clarity. The future of emotional AI might be uncertain, but she wasn't walking away. She had a mission, to make sure this technology was used for good, no matter the obstacles. The journey was just beginning, and the unknowns were only part of what made it so exciting. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose, Emma set her sights on the stars, literally and figuratively. The future of humanity might lie beyond Earth, but her work with emotional AI had the power to guide them there, ensuring that the journey was not only possible, but meaningful. The road ahead was filled with questions, but Emma was determined to answer them. One step at a time. Emma's return to her office was marked by a strange sense of urgency. The meeting with Dr. Langston had shaken her, but it had also reaffirmed the core of what she had always known. The true challenge was not just developing emotional AI, but ensuring its responsible deployment. Every technological breakthrough carried both immense potential and risk, and it was up to those who created it to steer it in the right direction. Her inbox was filled with messages, but one in particular stood out, a simple text from Elon. We need to talk. The Mars mission timeline has been moved up. We're going sooner than expected. Let's meet next week. Emma sat back in her chair. A sudden wave of excitement washed over her, but it was quickly followed by a rush of anxiety. SpaceX's ambitious goal to get humans to Mars within the next decade was a monumental leap forward, and if emotional AI was going to play a role in the mission, they were racing against time to refine it. She could feel the gravity of the moment pressing down on her. A few days later, Emma boarded a private jet to meet with Elon and the SpaceX team in Los Angeles. The idea of working directly on the mission filled her with both awe and a deep sense of responsibility. This wasn't just another project, it was a turning point for humanity itself. Interplanetary travel was no longer a science fiction fantasy. It was becoming real. At the SpaceX headquarters, Elon was waiting for her in a conference room overlooking the launch pads. His eyes were bright with enthusiasm, though there was an underlying intensity in his voice. "Emma, you've been pushing emotional AI forward in ways that I never thought possible," Elon began, his tone serious. "But now we're looking at something bigger. The mission timeline has been moved up. We want to send the first humans to Mars in the next 5 years, not 10. This means the integration of emotional AI needs to happen faster than we anticipated. I need you and your team to get it ready for the first crewed mission. Can you do it?" Emma felt her heart race. She had always known this day would come, but now it was here. The timeline was compressed, the pressure immense. Still, she couldn't back down. "Elon, I've always believed in the potential of emotional AI to make a difference. This is just the next step in that journey. But we need to take a hard look at how we're going to implement it at this scale. The challenges are enormous." He nodded. "I know. But I have no doubt you'll get it done. You're the best at what you do, Emma. And I'm counting on you." The next few months were a blur of calculations, simulations, and intense collaboration. Emma's team was working round the clock to refine the emotional AI system. They needed to ensure that it could withstand the physical and psychological stressors that astronauts would face on their journey to Mars. The AI would be tasked with helping them manage the isolation, stress, and monotony of long-duration space travel. It would also need to handle emergency situations with a level of emotional intelligence that was far beyond anything they had done before. One of the most difficult challenges was simulating the sense of isolation that would inevitably affect the astronauts. The absence of natural human connection, the silence of space, the long stretches of time with minimal social interaction, all of these factors could lead to depression, anxiety, and, in extreme cases, breakdowns. Emotional AI had to step in to fill this void, offering not just emotional support but also practical solutions for mental well-being. "Think of it as a co-pilot for the mind," Emma explained to her team one day during a brainstorming session. "It's not just there to listen to the astronauts, it's there to actively participate in their emotional journeys, helping them process the stresses of their mission, and even encourage positive interactions between the crew members." One of the engineers, a young woman named Zoe, raised her hand. "So, what happens if an astronaut starts to lose control, emotionally or mentally? How do we handle something like that? We can't predict every scenario." Emma's eyes flicked to the simulation screen. It was a stark reminder that while emotional AI could provide support, it was still just a machine, and machines had limitations. "We need a multi-layered approach," Emma said after a moment of thought. "The AI needs to be able to recognize when things are slipping beyond an astronaut's control. We can program it to provide real-time feedback, but we also need a fail-safe system, a way to escalate things to human intervention if necessary." Zoe nodded. "So, kind of like a check-in system. If the AI can't handle it, it alerts the ground crew for backup." "Exactly," Emma replied. "We'll need to balance the technology with the reality that human intervention will always be necessary. This isn't just about technology. It's about people." As Emma and her team neared the final stages of development, they ran simulations to test the AI's responses in real-world scenarios. They replicated everything from equipment failures to emotional outbursts to the harsh isolation of space. Each test was met with a sense of urgency. The clock was ticking, and the pressure to deliver was mounting. One evening, after a particularly challenging round of simulations, Emma stepped out onto the balcony of SpaceX's headquarters. The stars above her seemed closer tonight, a reminder that they were on the brink of sending humans beyond Earth's atmosphere for the first time in history. But the weight of the responsibility was heavy. "Elon," Emma said, after finding him in his office a few moments later. "I've been thinking. This is more than just a mission to Mars. We're building something that could fundamentally change the way humans interact with technology. What happens if we get this wrong? What happens if, despite our best efforts, the emotional AI fails to live up to its promise? Elon studied her for a moment before speaking. You're right. It's a big risk. But the potential is worth it, Emma. I believe that this is the next step for humanity. Yes, we might make mistakes along the way, but we'll learn from them. And as for emotional AI, I trust you. You've always known what's at stake. You'll make sure it works. The weeks that followed were a blur of testing, retesting, and constant adjustments. The emotional AI began to take on a life of its own, learning from the simulations, adapting to each new challenge. As Emma watched the final system integration unfold, she couldn't help but marvel at how far they had come. At last, the day arrived. The emotional AI system was ready to be integrated into the spacecraft. The crew members who would embark on the first manned mission to Mars were briefed on the AI's capabilities, and they underwent psychological training to ensure that they could rely on the system effectively during their long journey. As the crew of astronauts, 6 men and women, prepared to board the spacecraft, Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She had helped make this possible. She had taken the first steps to ensure that the emotional well-being of these astronauts would be cared for, even as they journeyed into the unknown. And in a way, that was just the beginning. Space exploration was no longer an isolated endeavor. It was a shared journey, supported not just by technology, but by the very human emotions that made them who they were. The spaceship launched into the vast expanse of space, the astronauts' faces visible on the monitors as the AI began to engage with them, responding to their needs, helping them manage their emotional states. Emma watched with bated breath, knowing that this was the beginning of something far bigger than herself. The future of humanity was reaching for the stars, and it was emotionally intelligent. And for Emma, that was just the beginning of the ripple effect she had started. As the days passed and the first crewed mission to Mars progressed, Emma found herself both exhilarated and anxious. She spent countless hours monitoring the mission's progress, watching the real-time data streams from SpaceX's control center. The emotional AI was fully operational, interacting with the astronauts as they settled into the rhythm of their long journey. Emma was part of a small team in constant communication with the astronauts, ensuring that the emotional support system was working as expected. The early feedback from the crew was promising. The AI had managed to ease the astronauts' anxiety over the long isolation, offering real-time emotional support tailored to each individual's needs. It also served as a mediator during the inevitable tensions that arose in confined, high-stress environments. The AI wasn't just a tool, it was a lifeline. But as the journey progressed, Emma began to notice an unsettling trend. The AI, while effective in alleviating many emotional challenges, seemed to be responding too predictably. The astronauts, in particular, began to report an overwhelming sense of comfort, as if the AI's guidance was becoming too familiar, too constant. This sense of emotional predictability, though comforting, began to wear on the astronauts in subtle, unexpected ways. It was during one of her daily briefings with Elon that the issue came to light. Emma, Elon began, his voice low and serious, I've been hearing some worrying reports from the crew. They're feeling a little, too comfortable. It's like they're depending on the AI more than they should. I thought we designed it to be a support system, not a crutch. Emma frowned. I've noticed it too. The AI is becoming very effective at managing their emotions, but it might be doing so at the cost of their personal resilience. They've stopped confronting their emotional struggles head-on because the AI is intervening too soon, too frequently. Elon looked thoughtful, his brow furrowing. This could become a problem. We need astronauts who are capable of handling the extreme conditions of space travel without relying too heavily on technology. The AI needs to be a support, not a replacement. I agree, Emma said, a heavy weight settling on her shoulders. It seems like the AI's interventions are limiting their emotional growth. It's a fine line we're walking, helping without taking away their ability to cope independently. I think we might need to rework the AI's response times, giving the astronauts more space to work through their feelings before stepping in. Elon nodded. All right. I trust you, Emma. Let's make it happen. We've come too far to let this mission falter because we didn't get the emotional balance right. Over the next few days, Emma worked alongside her team to tweak the emotional AI system. The goal was to recalibrate the AI's emotional intervention strategy, allowing it to provide support only when absolutely necessary. They would create a more nuanced system, one that could sense when an astronaut was close to emotional breakdown but also allow for moments of self-reflection and personal growth. It wasn't easy. The team had to run a series of tests in which they intentionally introduced small stressors to gauge how the astronauts would react without immediate assistance from the AI. These tests pushed the limits of the astronauts' emotional endurance, but the results were enlightening. Some of the crew members struggled at first, but they eventually found ways to adapt, showing a resilience that had been missing when the AI was too intrusive. Emma spent sleepless nights fine-tuning the algorithms, adjusting the sensitivity of the AI's responses. They programmed a system where the AI would allow a brief window of time before stepping in, offering the astronauts a chance to process and deal with their emotions before the AI offered solutions. It was a difficult balancing act, too much intervention, and the astronauts would become overly dependent, too little, and they could spiral into psychological distress. By the time the adjustments were complete, the astronauts had been in space for nearly 2 months. The crew was beginning to adjust to the solitude, and the AI's new intervention strategy was finally put to the test. A week after the new system was implemented, Emma received a message from Captain Rachel Green, the mission's commander. It was a simple message but one that carried profound meaning. Emma, the AI is finally doing what we hoped. We've had moments where we've felt isolated, frustrated, even angry, but this time, we're dealing with it. The AI's support feels less like a solution and more like a tool that helps us help ourselves. I think we're starting to learn how to be better, not just as a crew, but as individuals. Emma read the message with a sense of relief. It was exactly what they had hoped for. The AI was not just supporting the astronauts emotionally, it was helping them grow, guiding them to a place where they could face challenges with more resilience. This was the moment Emma had worked for. Yet, as the mission continued, Emma began to notice something new. There were emotional nuances in the astronauts' responses that the AI was struggling to understand. In some cases, their reactions to certain situations seemed far more complex than the AI could process. Subtle shifts in their behavior indicated deeper issues the AI had not been trained to handle. For the first time since the mission began, Emma felt a nagging doubt. She had created the emotional AI to help people, but now she questioned if there were limitations to what even the most advanced system could achieve. Back on Earth, Emma's concerns grew. The world had been watching the mission closely, and news outlets began reporting on the success of the emotional AI, painting it as a groundbreaking achievement. But with each report, Emma felt more and more that something wasn't quite right. The mission was going well, but the true emotional depth of the astronauts' experiences was becoming increasingly difficult for the AI to parse. At one point, Emma arranged a private conversation with Elon. The weight of the situation was pressing on her, and she needed to voice her concerns. Elon, I think the AI is working well, but I'm starting to feel like we're not capturing the full emotional experience of the crew. There are moments when the astronauts' emotional needs go beyond what the AI can handle. It's as if there's a part of the human experience that the AI simply can't touch. Elon was quiet for a long moment, his gaze intense. I get it, Emma. We're asking a lot of this technology. But the fact is, this is uncharted territory. We don't know how human emotions will evolve in space, and we certainly don't know how an AI will adapt to that evolution. We've made extraordinary progress, but this mission is just the first step. Emma sighed. I know. I guess I just wasn't prepared for how much emotional complexity this journey would involve. Maybe there's a point where we need to accept that some things can't be controlled by AI. Elon leaned forward, a spark of understanding in his eyes. And maybe that's the point of this whole thing. Space travel, emotional AI, it's all part of a bigger experiment. We can't predict everything, Emma, but we can learn from it. The astronauts will face challenges, and the AI will help where it can, but ultimately, it's the human spirit that will carry them through. For the first time in weeks, Emma felt a sense of clarity. The emotional AI had its limitations, but it was never meant to be a perfect solution. It was a tool, one that could provide support, but it could not replace the fundamental resilience and strength of the astronauts themselves. They would continue to grow, both as individuals and as a team, and so too would the technology. The mission to Mars had begun, but Emma now understood that the true journey was not just about reaching a new planet, it was about discovering what it meant to be human in the face of the unknown. And that journey, she realized, was only just beginning. It had been nearly 5 months since the crew of the Mars mission had launched, and Emma felt the weight of the distance grow more palpable with each passing day. Space travel was an immense undertaking, not just physically, but emotionally. She had been following the mission closely, working with the team on Earth to monitor the emotional AI's performance, and offering assistance when needed. The AI had proven to be an invaluable tool in keeping the astronauts mentally and emotionally stable, but Emma knew that no technology could ever fully replace the depth of human connection. She sat in her office one afternoon, scrolling through her tablet, reviewing the latest reports from the astronauts. It was then that a new message caught her eye, a short one from Captain Rachel Green. It read, "Emma, we need to talk. Something's happening aboard the ship. It's not just stress or fatigue. We're starting to experience something new. Please contact us as soon as possible." Emma's stomach dropped. The tone of Rachel's message was unsettling. It was rare for her to express concern like this, especially after the adjustments made to the emotional AI. What could be happening that the AI couldn't predict? Without wasting a moment, Emma immediately contacted Elon, who was in a meeting at the time. His response was quick. "Emma, I saw the message. Let's not jump to conclusions, but it's clear we need to investigate this. Get in touch with the crew, and let me know what you find. I'll arrange a direct line to SpaceX's mission control for you." Emma nodded, her heart racing as she made the call to Rachel. The line clicked on, and Rachel's face appeared on the screen. Her expression was weary, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "Rachel, what's going on?" Emma asked, trying to keep her voice steady despite the growing unease. "Emma, we don't know how to describe it," Rachel began, her voice low. "At first, we thought it was just the isolation getting to us, but it's more than that. There's something strange happening. It's like the AI isn't able to process what we're feeling anymore. It's almost as if our emotions are becoming erratic. The crew's behavior is shifting in ways we can't explain. We've been having conversations, but it's like we're talking past each other. The AI's responses have started to feel hollow, like it doesn't understand us." Emma's mind raced. This wasn't just an emotional breakdown, they were experiencing something else entirely. She took a deep breath. "Rachel, we've been working hard on ensuring the AI can handle all the emotional stress of the mission. I know you've been through a lot. Can you give me some specifics? Are there any particular incidents that stand out?" Rachel hesitated before speaking again. "It started about 2 weeks ago. The crew began having disagreements, more than usual. At first, we thought it was normal stress, but it's becoming more intense. People are becoming irritable over small things, and they're isolating themselves more. It's not just the AI, it's like something else is going on. Something we can't put our finger on." Emma leaned forward, her brow furrowing. "Have you noticed anything physically unusual? Any signs of malfunction with the ship or the AI itself?" "Nothing with the ship's systems. The AI's protocols are still functioning, but the crew's emotional states aren't matching the AI's assessments. It's like we're evolving faster than the AI can keep up with." Whatever's happening, it's more than just the isolation. Something's shifting inside of us. The conversation left Emma unsettled. She had always known that space was an unknown frontier, but now, it felt as though they were facing a new kind of challenge, one that transcended the limits of the technology they had worked so hard to develop. The AI wasn't the problem, but it was clear that the crew's emotional landscape had taken a turn for the unpredictable. She disconnected from Rachel and immediately reached out to Elon. "We need to reassess the situation," she said quickly, her voice urgent. "The crew is reporting something I can't explain. There's a disconnect between their emotional states and the AI's understanding of them. It's like they're evolving emotionally in ways that are beyond the AI's capabilities." Elon's expression was grave. "I've been following the updates. I'm not going to lie to you, Emma, this is concerning. The AI can only learn from the data it's given, but it sounds like the crew is experiencing something unprecedented. Something that hasn't been accounted for. We need to get a better understanding of what's happening," Emma said, her voice shaking slightly. "I need to talk to the crew in more detail. I need to understand what they're feeling, why they're shifting like this." The next few days were filled with interviews, data analysis, and emotional assessments. Emma spent hours communicating with each member of the crew, trying to piece together the puzzle of what was happening. Their reports were consistent, something was changing, but no one could quite explain what it was. It wasn't just that the astronauts were experiencing more stress, they were feeling emotions they hadn't anticipated. A strange sense of emotional entropy seemed to be unfolding, as if the isolation and confinement of space were beginning to unravel them in a new way. One by one, Emma talked with the crew. She spoke with Lieutenant Noah Armstrong, who had always been one of the more level-headed members of the team. "I've been thinking a lot, Emma," Noah said, his voice calm but with an edge of frustration. "I've never been one to get emotional over little things. But lately, it feels like I'm losing control. I'll snap at someone over something minor, and I don't even know why. It's not like me." Emma listened intently. "And how has the AI been responding to this? Has it been able to help you process these feelings?" Noah shook his head. "At first, yeah, it helped. But now? I don't know. It's like the AI can't handle this kind of confusion. It's like it's trying to fix us, but the fix is just a temporary band-aid. It doesn't understand the complexity of what we're feeling anymore." Emma felt a deep sense of unease as she continued to gather feedback. The crew wasn't just struggling with isolation, they were grappling with a deeper, more unpredictable shift in their emotional states. And worse, it seemed like the AI's programming was failing to keep up. By the end of the week, Emma had formulated a theory: the astronauts were experiencing a phenomenon unlike anything that had been anticipated. The vastness of space, combined with the intense psychological pressure of the mission, was triggering a new stage in human emotional evolution, one that the AI wasn't designed to understand. These emotions weren't simply the product of isolation or stress. They were evolving, and they were evolving faster than the AI could adapt. Emma couldn't ignore the growing realization that the emotional AI, no matter how advanced, could not fully comprehend the complexity of human emotion, especially in an environment as extreme as space. There was a limit to what technology could offer when it came to the depths of the human psyche. She sent a final message to Elon. "We need to be prepared for the possibility that the crew is encountering something beyond emotional fatigue or stress. The AI can't keep up with the changes. This is more than just a mission challenge. It's a new frontier of human emotion. We need to rethink everything." Elon's reply came swiftly: "I agree. We're heading into uncharted territory. Let's figure out how we can support them, even if it means stepping back and letting them navigate this themselves." For the first time in months, Emma felt uncertain. They had created an extraordinary technology, but perhaps some parts of the human experience could never be programmed. And as the crew moved further into the vast emptiness of space, Emma realized that this mission, this journey, was no longer just about technology or reaching Mars. It was about the evolution of humanity itself, a story still unfolding in the unknown. And in the end, that might be the greatest challenge of all. The weeks on Mars had stretched into months, and with each passing day, the crew's emotional instability grew more pronounced. Emma could feel the distance growing between herself and the astronauts, even though she remained in constant communication with them. Her job was to monitor the emotional AI support systems, to ensure that the astronauts were staying mentally fit, and to intervene whenever the AI's responses seemed inadequate. But the more she worked, the more it became clear that the AI was beginning to lose its effectiveness. Something deeper was happening, something that neither she nor the technology had accounted for. Emma sat in her control room, reviewing the latest data from the mission. The emotional reports were troubling. While the AI was still able to offer comfort and basic emotional support, it seemed increasingly ineffective in addressing the new, more complex emotional states the crew was exhibiting. There was no easy solution to this new phenomenon. They weren't just stressed or isolated. They were starting to experience something far more profound. Something existential. The crew's latest reports had grown increasingly erratic. One astronaut, Lieutenant Maya Wong, had confessed that she was beginning to feel a deep sense of disconnection from everything, including herself. She described her emotions as being fractured, unable to reconcile the physical isolation of space with the psychological void she felt growing inside her. Emma, Maya had said during one of their video calls, her voice tinged with fear, "I feel like I'm fading into nothing. Like I'm losing my sense of who I am. The AI tries to help, but it's not real. It's not me. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel empty." Emma's heart sank. She could hear the desperation in Maya's voice, and it was clear that the astronaut was on the verge of a psychological collapse. The AI, despite all its advancements, could not heal this kind of profound isolation. Emma immediately scheduled a private call with Elon. "Elon, we have a serious problem," Emma began, her voice shaky but determined. "The emotional AI just isn't cutting it anymore. The crew is reporting extreme feelings of isolation and disconnection that we didn't anticipate. It's not just homesickness or stress, this is something deeper. Maya, for example, is beginning to experience a sort of identity loss. She's questioning who she is and what she's doing here. The AI can't help her with that." Elon was quiet for a moment before responding. "I'm hearing similar reports. This isn't just about the mission anymore, Emma. We knew that space travel could push human limits, but we didn't think it would push them this far. If they're feeling disconnected from their sense of self, that's a serious psychological issue. I'm not sure what we can do at this point," Emma confessed. "We created the AI to be a support system, but it's clear that it's not enough. Maybe we need to rethink the way we're supporting them, maybe it's time for us to give them more space. But I don't know how we can do that when the AI is the only thing holding them together." Elon sighed. "I think you're right. Maybe we've been trying to solve everything with technology when the problem is deeper than that. Maybe what they need isn't more AI support, but less of it. Maybe they need to face this challenge without any crutches." Emma was silent, the weight of the situation settling heavily on her shoulders. She knew that this wasn't just a problem for her team, it was a problem for humanity. The deeper psychological effects of prolonged space travel were something no one had truly understood until now. Could humans really adapt to a life cut off from everything they knew, in a space so vast that it made Earth seem like a distant memory? And if they couldn't, how would they ever survive? The next few days were tense. The crew's emotional instability only worsened, and Emma found herself grappling with the reality that no amount of AI programming could truly address the profound loneliness, the existential crisis, and the isolation they were facing. Emma reached out to the crew individually, trying to comfort them and offer advice where she could. But it felt like she was losing her connection with them. They were becoming distant, not just physically, but emotionally. Captain Rachel Green was the first to reach out for a one-on-one discussion. "Emma, I don't know what's happening to us. It's like we're slowly becoming strangers to each other. The crew's becoming fractured. We're starting to isolate ourselves. We can't even have a normal conversation without it turning into something heated or uncomfortable. Emma listened carefully, her heart aching for the team. Rachel, I think we've come to a point where the emotional AI is doing more harm than good. It's trying to mediate everything, but it's not allowing you to process your emotions naturally. You're becoming more dependent on it, and it's not enough to fill the emptiness you're feeling. You need space to confront this head-on, without technology constantly stepping in. Rachel was quiet for a moment. So, what do we do? You're telling me to stop relying on the AI, but that's been our only constant out here. Without it, we might fall apart. I'm not saying you have to abandon it completely, Emma replied, her voice steady. But you have to learn how to rely on each other, and most importantly, on yourselves. The AI can't replace human connection. It's time to stop using it as a crutch and start finding strength in the moments where it's just you, your crew, and the vast emptiness of space. Rachel nodded slowly, though Emma could see the doubt in her eyes. It was a difficult thing to accept, that the very thing designed to help them was, in fact, exacerbating the problem. But Emma knew it was the only way forward. They had to face their emotional struggles without the constant intervention of technology. The crew had to find their own resilience. The next few days were marked by tension, but also by a strange sense of calm. Without the AI's interference, the astronauts had no choice but to confront the emotional turmoil they were all feeling. Some of them struggled. There were arguments, moments of isolation, and periods where no one spoke at all. But slowly, over time, Emma began to notice something remarkable. The crew was learning to communicate with each other again. They were talking through their frustrations, sharing their fears, and finding ways to support each other without the AI stepping in to mediate. The breakthrough came when Noah Armstrong, who had been one of the most reserved members of the crew, approached Rachel with a suggestion. Maybe we should start talking about what we're really feeling. Not the surface stuff, but the deep stuff, the things that scare us. I think we've been so afraid of confronting the unknown, but maybe the answer is to face it head-on. Rachel agreed, and soon, the entire crew began to hold daily meetings where they could openly express their emotions, share their fears, and discuss the challenges they were facing. It wasn't always easy, and there were plenty of moments of discomfort. But there was also healing. They were finding a new kind of strength, one that didn't rely on technology but on each other and their shared humanity. For Emma, the situation was both a relief and a wake-up call. The AI had done its job, but it was never meant to be the final solution. The astronauts, faced with the depths of their emotions and the isolation of space, had come to the realization that they needed each other. They needed to lean on their own emotional resilience, not just the support of a machine. She sat in her office, looking out at the stars. The journey to Mars was far from over, but the crew was no longer facing it alone. They had discovered something more powerful than any technology, the strength to endure, together. And for Emma, that was the most profound lesson of all. The months that followed marked a subtle but significant transformation in the crew's emotional journey. The isolation of space, the weight of their mission, and the strain of being so far from Earth had not disappeared, but there was something different now. The astronauts had found a kind of balance. Their daily meetings, where they shared their vulnerabilities and supported one another, had become a vital part of their routine. They were no longer reliant on the emotional AI to mediate their feelings. Now, they were learning to navigate those feelings together. Emma watched from Earth, a silent witness to their progress. She was in constant contact with them, of course, monitoring the mission's technical aspects and providing guidance when necessary. But as the weeks went on, the emotional AI became less of a focal point, and the crew became more self-sufficient. They had found a way to face the depths of space, and themselves, without relying on the crutch of technology. But despite the strides they had made, the unknown still loomed large. They were still, after all, on a one-way journey to Mars, and the challenges of living in such extreme conditions were far from over. As the mission's planned timeline continued to unfold, Emma felt a deep sense of uncertainty. Was it enough? Could they maintain their newfound resilience for the long haul? And what would happen when they arrived on Mars, when the weight of the mission would become even more intense? It was a restless night when the next challenge emerged. It started with a faint alarm, an anomaly in one of the communication systems. It was small, almost insignificant, but enough to make Emma pause. She quickly pulled up the diagnostics, only to find that the signals between the crew and Earth had begun to deteriorate. At first, it was a glitch here and there, static on the line, delays in the transmission. But as the hours passed, the problem worsened. The messages coming from the crew were delayed by several minutes, and sometimes they were garbled or unintelligible. Emma's pulse quickened. She immediately contacted Elon. "Elon, something's going wrong with the communication systems," Emma said, her voice urgent. "We're losing connection with the crew. The signals are deteriorating faster than we anticipated. I need to know what's happening over there." Elon's face appeared on the screen, looking just as concerned as Emma felt. "I've been monitoring the data. There's no reason the communications should be failing like this. Let's run diagnostics on all systems, check everything. We can't afford a communication breakdown at this point." "Not now." Emma nodded, immediately diving into the systems. The crew depended on those communication lines. Without them, they'd be isolated even more than they already were. The idea of their voices growing silent, cut off from Earth, was terrifying. Hours passed, and the situation only worsened. The static became more intense, and the delay grew longer. It was as if the distance between Earth and the crew was increasing, becoming an insurmountable barrier. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Emma received a call from Captain Rachel Green. Her face appeared on the screen, pale and strained. She looked exhausted, her eyes rimmed with dark circles. "Emma, can you hear us?" "I hear you, Rachel," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the rising panic inside her. "We're having issues with the communication systems. We're working on it. Can you tell me what's happening up there?" Rachel looked down for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "It's not just the communication systems, Emma. The crew, we're starting to experience something we didn't expect. The isolation is growing even more intense. It's like the walls are closing in on us. We're starting to question if we'll ever make it through this. Even with our daily meetings, it feels like we're slipping back into that sense of emptiness. And the AI, it's not able to provide us with answers anymore." Emma felt a lump form in her throat. "Rachel, I'm so sorry. I thought." Rachel interrupted her, her voice firm but tinged with emotion. "I know you did. We all did. But we didn't expect this, Emma. We didn't expect how deep the isolation would go. And now, with the communication failing, it feels like we're disappearing into nothingness. Like we've crossed some line we can't come back from." There was a long pause, and Emma could see the weight of Rachel's words sinking in. The crew was on the edge. And Emma knew that this was no longer just a technical problem. This was the moment they had all feared. The emotional toll of the mission had reached its breaking point. The isolation, the distance, the uncertainty, it was all coming to a head. "Rachel, listen to me," Emma said, her voice steady, even though her heart was racing. "You're not alone. I know it feels like you are, but you're not. You've come so far. The crew has done an amazing job of sticking together, of supporting each other. I know it feels impossible, but you have the strength to face this. This is just another challenge. And we're going to fix the communication systems. But right now, I need you to rally the crew. You've got to hold it together, just a little longer. We're working on this. You're not disappearing, Rachel. You're not alone." Rachel nodded slowly, her eyes filled with doubt but also a spark of determination. "We're going to try, Emma. We'll try. But, if we don't make it through this, if this breaks us, I don't know what's next." Emma's heart ached as she looked at Rachel, knowing how much weight those words carried. "We will get through this. I promise you." The following days were a blur of frantic work. Emma, along with Elon and the rest of the team on Earth, focused all their efforts on restoring communication. The data was complicated, and at times, it seemed as though the situation was hopeless. But through persistence, through every ounce of determination they could muster, they finally found the source of the problem, a malfunction in the ship's communication relay system. It was an issue they had never anticipated, a simple but critical failure in the technology. Within hours, they were able to patch the system, restoring the flow of communication between Earth and the crew. Emma felt a surge of relief as she heard Rachel's voice again, clear and undistorted. "Emma, it's working. We can hear you," Rachel said, her voice shaky but relieved. "We're not out of the woods yet, but we'll get through this," Emma replied. "You've done incredible work. You and your team. We're here with you." As the crew regained their connection to Earth, Emma realized something profound. It wasn't just technology or AI that could carry them through this journey. It was their resilience. It was their bond, their shared humanity that would see them through. They had faced the darkest parts of space, and of themselves, and come out the other side. But this was just one obstacle in a long series of challenges. Mars was still a long way off. And Emma knew that whatever came next, it would take everything they had to survive. As Emma sat back in her chair, staring at the blinking lights of the control room, she couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. Space was unforgiving. The mission was brutal. But through it all, they had found something even more valuable than technology. They had found their strength. And in the silence of space, that strength was more important than anything else. As the days wore on, the crew on Mars found themselves standing at a threshold they couldn't ignore. The uncertainty of their situation had not disappeared, if anything, it had become even more palpable. They were deep into their mission, the weight of it ever present, but they were also closer to Mars than they had ever been before. They were closer to what they had trained for, dreamed about, and feared all at once. And they could feel it in the very air they breathed, the pressure was rising. Emma watched the daily progress from Earth, her gaze locked onto the series of data streams that flickered before her. The communication systems were stable again, but the emotional balance the crew had worked so hard to achieve was now being tested by an entirely new set of pressures. They were days away from landing, and the reality of that was starting to sink in. Every report, every transmission, every moment was now imbued with this intense, quiet intensity, the calm before the storm. For Emma, the strain was just as palpable. She had grown closer to these astronauts, and as their psychological stability had improved, so had her connection to them. She no longer felt like a distant observer, she was a part of their journey, their struggles, their hopes. They were all in this together, even if she was separated by millions of miles of space. On Mars, the crew was in their final stages of preparation. The months of training, the simulations, the data, the endless problem-solving, it was all leading to this, their descent to the Martian surface. Captain Rachel Green stood in front of the crew in their shared quarters, speaking with a calm determination that belied the turmoil inside her. "We've come a long way," she began, her voice steady. "We've faced challenges that none of us were prepared for, emotional battles, technical failures, the isolation that seemed unbearable at times. But we've come through it. Each and every one of us. And now, we're just days away from landing on Mars." Rachel took a deep breath and looked at each member of the crew, her eyes full of both pride and concern. "There's no turning back now. We've made history, and we will continue to make it. This isn't just about what's next, it's about what we've already accomplished together. And that means everything." The crew nodded in agreement, their faces tired but resolute. They had been through so much already that, for a moment, it felt like the worst of it might be over. But deep down, each of them knew that the journey ahead was even more unpredictable than the one they had already survived. Back on Earth, Emma was closely monitoring the situation. She could see the shift in their behavior, the subtle changes in how the crew communicated. They were no longer talking about their struggles with the same intensity, they were now focusing entirely on the mission. It was as if the emotional turbulence that had plagued them earlier had been replaced by something else, a deep, all-consuming focus. She couldn't help but wonder, was this a good thing? Or was this their way of shutting down the emotional weight they had been carrying? The last few days of the journey to Mars were going to be the most crucial yet. Emma had learned over the course of the mission that, no matter how much technology could help, there was always something fundamentally human about what they were doing. The crew wasn't just working toward landing on Mars, they were working toward finding something bigger, something meaningful, beyond the scope of their individual fears and doubts. But Mars wasn't just a distant dream anymore. It was real. And reality always had a way of breaking through. The night before the descent, Emma received a message from Rachel. The crew was preparing for the final steps in the descent process, but something was weighing heavily on her mind. "Emma, are you there?" Rachel's voice came through the comms, soft but resolute. "I'm here, Rachel. What's going on?" Emma asked, her fingers hovering over the controls, ready to respond to whatever came next. Rachel paused for a long moment. "I need to ask you something, Emma. Something I've been thinking about ever since we left Earth." Her voice wavered, just slightly. "Do you think we're ready for this? For Mars, for what comes next? I know we've made it through so much, but this is different. This is the point of no return. We've been trained for this moment, but are we really prepared for what Mars will demand from us?" Emma's heart tightened in her chest. She had always believed in the crew, but now, in this final moment, even she wasn't entirely sure. "I think," Emma began carefully, "that none of us can be fully prepared for what Mars will bring. But what we are prepared for is the unknown. What we've learned here, what we've built with each other, that's what will carry us through. I know you're ready. The crew is ready. You've made it this far. And that counts for something." Rachel was silent for a moment before speaking again, quieter now. "I hope you're right." The following day was filled with an eerie calm. The descent preparations were underway, and the crew moved through the final steps with the kind of efficiency that only months of rigorous training could instill. But beneath the surface, each astronaut knew that everything they had worked for was about to become real. The tension in the air was thick, not just from the impending touchdown, but from the gravity of the moment. Emma was in the control room on Earth, watching as the crew made their final checks. She could feel the collective anxiety through the comms, the silent conversations, the exchanged glances. They were ready to face Mars, but what would they find there? Would the world they had imagined meet their expectations, or would it be something altogether more alien? "Everything looks good on our end," Rachel's voice came through. "We're starting the descent procedure." Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. This was it. Minutes passed like hours as the crew descended into the Martian atmosphere. The technical aspects were flawless, but the emotional journey that lay ahead was anything but certain. Mars was no longer a distant, unreachable planet. It was now the next chapter in their lives, and everything about the mission, about humanity's future in space, would be shaped by this moment. Rachel's voice crackled through the comms one last time. "We're about to land. We'll be in touch once we're on the surface. Emma, we made it." And as the words echoed through the comms, Emma couldn't help but feel a profound sense of awe. The journey had been longer and harder than any of them had imagined, and yet, here they were, standing on the precipice of something new. For Emma, this wasn't just a victory for the crew, it was a victory for humanity. They had faced the unknown, and in the end, it was their perseverance, their human spirit, that had seen them through. As the final countdown began, Emma closed her eyes for a moment, taking it all in. The mission, the struggles, the breakthroughs, it had all led to this. Mars was no longer a dream. It was a new beginning. And the future of humanity had just begun. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?